Due to YouTube policies for monetization, I'm not allowed to swear in like the first like 30 seconds of a video. So the words that I want to say right now for the way my wagering has gone will have to wait for a little bit. So let's start this off on a good note. We'll bring the pretty one in here, Caleb. I was on the Trust the Profit stream for quite a bit this morning and afternoon, and evening. What would seem to be, I mean, the hours just passed, and we were just like, I don't know where all the time went, where all the margaritas went either. But Matthew agreed that you were also very convincing. So it's not just me that has been tricked by your like stone gaze. So your reputation precedes yourself a little bit there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's worked for me and also against me. But today I wish I could have been convinced by some other people. But that's all right.
I do see Matthew DeSantis did mention that he was here to see my condition because he did notice that I drank those 3 margaritas pretty fast. But also to remark that somehow Caleb drafted the only Derby team that is yet to have a scratch. So congratulations, Caleb. You have no scratches in your Derby team. Honestly, though, if you guys are doing stable duel rules, that could be bad, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that I think Barry, whoever it was that has Ray's Cane, is probably like fine with a scratch there. So yeah, I mean, I think that it can go both ways. I don't think I have any absolute destined to run the bottom 4 horses, but yeah, it's been an interesting Derby with these scratches, hasn't it?
Yep, and Alex calling out that you definitely mentioned the one in the 8th race for what it's worth. I think that was like the one horse that we were kind of on that was a bit of a price today. That won, and I think we both did absolutely nothing with
Yeah,
it. So
yeah. Ran a good second. So
no, didn't he win?
in the 8th race today.
Yeah, that was the horse that beat
You mean the
the
9th
9,
race?
or maybe it was the 9th race. I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah, played hard, right? That horse makes sense. I was the other horse. I think that was your horse, the Bay Storm.
That one that was a little rough. What did Mark? We'll just bring you in, Mark, since you're DMing us on Discord, telling us that
Hey
we're
guys, I'm
wrong.
over here. Don't forget
Hey guys, I'm
Yeah,
over
so
here.
he's like, hey, but how did you end up doing today, Mark?
I actually had a pretty decent day. I basically ended up breaking even on the day. Nothing big up or down. I really only hit one nice double, and that was the what was it? Race 6 and 7 double, and beyond that, it was a okay day. Yeah, nothing. Not down huge, not up huge. All my 2-day stuff is dead, but locked and loaded for tomorrow, ready to go.
Yeah, unfortunately for Caleb, that you and I both convinced him to play that express bet contest, which did not help his bottom line either.
Oh
No,
no.
it did not help my bottom line either. I couldn't have whiffed much harder in that one. It was frustrating too. I guess I probably overthought it a bit trying to find prices because I found the right races where the prices happened. I just did not have the right price horse in said races. So
yeah, just general thoughts on today. Any biases? Anything you guys are kind of seeing out there?
oh, go ahead, Caleb.
I was just gonna say I didn't see anything dramatic. It did seem like it was tough to come from way off the pace. I think if you look at the Oaks, I mean, wet paint, there was a fast pace, and Pretty Mischievous was up on it for the most part and wide, and she was still able to hold on. Wet paint left with too much to do, but you look at who run, second, third, and fourth, and it was all closers. So it's hard to say that it's dead speed and forget the closers completely, but it does seem like getting those closers on top was tough today.
Yeah, I saw a couple of things. I think, and again, probably pretty normal Churchill where more forwardly placed horses were doing well. I know we were talking kind of a little bit of a pre thing here. I think both on the dirt and on the turf. I don't know if you wanted to be a loose lead type, but you definitely wanted to be a forwardly placed horse, maybe sitting second or third with a little bit of cover. But definitely forwardly placed. You didn't see a lot of horses coming from 6, 8, 10 lengths out of it. And the other thing that I think is notable going into tomorrow is that Chad Brown's barn has been very, very cold so far this meet. It seemed as though none of his horses really did much running, especially when you had the favorite and second choice in the turf race there. And both of them just kind of were flat and didn't finish. He had a couple of maidens. His best finish was in the second race. He had the 8 horse. It was a maiden that kind of was, flat in the stretch and finished third. So I think there's definitely some consideration. He's going to have a couple of very short price horses going into tomorrow, and if what do you do with those?
Yeah, it looks like Chad had 11 horses in today. Didn't have any winners. He did have about half of those run third or better, but yeah, I think with a guy like Chad, third or better is not what
you're aiming for.
No, not what you're aiming for.
Brad thinks that the inside seemed pretty dead. There was one horse that kind of rallied up the inside. Was that Smile Happy?
No, it was the 7 horse in race 2 or 3, maybe.
Yeah, I want to block out that Smile Happy race. So
I would tend to disagree with that. I think you had the really short price Pletcher horse, Monies, whatever, who re-rallied back up the fence, and there was also another horse earlier on the card who made a real big move up the fence. So I think I would. I understand where people are coming because it looked like most of the big moves were coming down the middle of the track, but is that just field size where, you're 4 or 5 wide and you're getting forced down the middle more so than necessarily the inside being bad?
Yeah, who liked Red Carpet Ready yesterday?
I don't think I was one who necessarily liked him. I thought that, or her, excuse me, but I thought that if you're going to try to beat Money's Gold, she was the obvious horse, but I can't say I tipped her on top.
Yeah, and I think David Aragona had mentioned that on that Devona Dale that day at Gulfstream, the rail was dead, and that's kind of where Red Carpet Ready came out of, and so it was kind of a bet back after that. But Joe pointing out that beard game is strong.
It sticks out a little more with the white shirt because I had to rep in for our good buddy Stephen Fox. Had to break out my favorite shirt that I break out once or twice a year.
What's it say?
Something about
who was the horse? I can't remember the name.
It was Morticia.
Morticia.
Was that the? I bet I tried to beat Morticia and all I got was a stupid shirt.
Yeah, something about you should see some of the other horses that I fade is what it says on the bottom of it. So.
Oh, Caleb, yours is the Arklow shirt, right? It's like I tried to beat Arklow and all I got was a stupid
Alpha.
shirt. Or I tried to beat Zulu Alpha.
And all I got was a stupid shirt. Yeah.
Alex, I agree with you. Papilio, I still think she's super talented, but God, she just can't straighten out. Put her into a real trainer's bar and let her straighten her out.
I do DJ's my poor co-host Andrew just catching more strays. We all need to thank Andrew for going on a limb and keying wet paint. Yeah.
Giving Andrew a little bit of props. I think Wet Paint's run style was just very up against the track bias today. She ran fine, especially considering her what she does and what her style is. She was over bet on all the hype factor, and I think if you were a smart player, you realize that hey, the track isn't playing very favorably to the very short price favorite. I'm going to go different directions. But I don't hate the take by him before seeing the bias. I'm sure he audibled when he saw how the track was playing.
Yeah, in fairness to him, he also did really like Pretty Mischievous. He said he would have used her more prominently if she was in a better post. It probably would have been A, but so I didn't give Pretty Mischievous a chance at all today. So, but I also didn't give Wet Paint a chance. But live and let learn. But we got a lot of races to get to here. So I figure we could probably just get started here a little bit as I fix my camera since I'm standing. And I think we're just going to get through a couple of these early races pretty quickly. The early pick 5, I actually asked Mark how much early pick 5 was going to pay, and I think he gave me like a real snarky answer. So Kayla, I'm going to ask you, how much do you think this early pick 5 pays?
The early pick 5?
Yeah, races 1 through 5.
I didn't look at all the races. I looked at the
you didn't? Oh, okay. Because like in the race 1, I think you got like an overwhelming favorite in Extra Anejo. Well, race 2, you thought you did have a favorite, but is going to get scratched out because of the Safi stuff. And then I thought in race 4, Goodnight Olive is probably the lock of the day. So I don't really think I'm going to be trying to beat Goodnight Olive on the spot. Mark, you got anything here that you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, I mentioned in the lead in here. I really wonder. I mean, Goodnight Olive is the best horse in the race. She's amazingly talented. She's done nothing but just absolutely be a win machine since breaking her maiden in the Chad barn, and he's campaigned her very, very well. I think my thing is if his barn's not firing, I think this might be the most vulnerable we've ever seen her. And I feel I'm going to be probably that idiot who doesn't single her and tries to, I don't know, necessarily try to beat her in a pick 5. I'm not going to let her beat me. But I think I'm a little bit more comfortable given what I've seen out of Chad's barn in spreading a little bit more in this race. It is.
I'm hitting you with it.
No, she's going to be. She'll be a defensive A. I'm probably going to have her as an A with 2 more. I know it's even worse. That's how I have it written down right now. I'm not finalizing that. I think I'm going to use some horses like Wicked Halo and Madeira as well. Given the fact of just Chad's barn seems to just be not firing right now for whatever the reason is.
You're just like saying you got all of them. Like, we got any more alerts we can pop off here?
You're having way too much fun with your soundboard.
I am. I didn't get to use it as much today as I wanted to. Caleb, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think Goodnight Olive is probably not going to lose this race. I think she's just way better than this field. She already has the 1 start off the layoff, which I thought, if you were going to catch her when she's vulnerable, maybe it would have been last time. But she clearly showed no signs of rust coming back and running her race into Madison. So, yeah, I don't really – yeah, I get that Chad's barn is cold, but this is probably the best horse in his barn, maybe the second best, depending on what you think of an Italian. But, yeah, I think that she's just way too good. I mean, you look at a horse like Wicked Halo – I mean, I guess she's fine. Travel Column, they don't know what to do with this horse. Madeira, I mean, really kind of went backwards a little bit in her last 2. Maybe getting back to a fast track makes a difference here. But for me, I just think Goodnight Olive's probably too good, so I'm not going to try very hard to beat her.
I had a shout out Fox on there saying that today was a disaster. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything creative here. Maybe I'll come up with something else tomorrow. I was a little bit interested in possibly using Travel Column, but I think maybe that's just me just reading too much into the Kieran speed points and the E designation there in this race. That it looks like it's devoid of speed, but I mean, I don't know. Wicked Halo and Hot and Sultry got a little bit of pace on them, so I don't really think it's going to be a paceless race. Mark said he does not want to talk about race 5 whatsoever. I know, like I said, we're going to move through these early ones kind of quick, just because I know we got a lot of races. And this is the Distaff Turf Mile, and I think he doesn't want to talk about it because there are just like so many horses in here that he just either has bet way too many times, or I mean, Caleb, this is kind of reminiscent of the old school, turf mile or not turf miler, but turf marathon division, right? Where it's like all these horses keep on beating each other. Well, you got Fluffy Socks, Speak of the Devil, Haughty, Wakanaka in this race, and I feel like we've seen these horses like so many times already, and I think, I don't know, they've beaten each other multiple times, or at least faced off against each other, and yeah, I don't really know what to make of this race. I mean, Spenderella shows up in here off the long layoff after winning the Del Mar Oaks. And I mean, if she runs her race, she looks pretty tough in this spot, but there's some pretty accomplished horses in here as well. But I don't know, like it's like fake Chads left and right, and Chad's not firing. So I don't really know what to make of this race. I don't know, Caleb, if you had any strong opinion in here.
I mean, I have a fairly strong opinion, but it's not a very creative opinion. I think that prior to the Safi Joseph news, I thought that perhaps Spenderella might be a little vulnerable just because of all the uncertainty. Facing older for the first time, uh, going to have a relatively contested pace scenario. I've been off since August of last year. It's a huge layoff. Shipping east again. But with the scratch of the 6, I really think Spenderella gets everything her own way. Whether she wants to go to the lead or probably sit just off of the 1 or the 8, maybe. I think either one will be just fine for her. I kind of agree with Mark. These don't feel like the real Chad Brown horses that you really want to bet. I mean, Hottie had everything her own way with a murderously just unbelievable trip last out with Thriller Chad Brown's kind of boxing in with the Moonlight. Um, I was kind of high on Wakanaka initially, so I did some material with Gino on Wednesday, I think it was, with our friend Gino Bucola, and I was kind of high on her initially, but I think the scratching of the 6 really hurts her chances. And additionally, it really seems like that Pegasus filly and mare turf race has not come back very well. And we saw Shantasara and Lady Rockstar kind of both run back today. They did not run very well. Shantasara was a tired 4th or 5th as the favorite. So it doesn't really seem like that form is maybe quite that strong, despite the fact that Wakanaka had legitimate trouble in that race. So yeah, for me, it's going to be Spenderella is pretty much going to be a single, or at the very least a single A. If I'm going to throw in like a C type horse, it's definitely not going to be Speak of the Devil. I'm not chasing that one aberration of a race over the goofy old school Churchill Turf last year. If I was going to throw in one more, it would be the 7 Fluffy Socks, believe it or not. And I know she definitely has some hang in her. But I also kind of wonder if she's just maybe a very kind of specific horse that is much better at a mile relative to a mile or a mile and an eighth or even a mile and a 16th. Because, I mean, it looks like she's about to win a lot of her races before she finds a way to lose. Maybe she just doesn't want to really win and doesn't have that kind of drive anymore. But I'm kind of wondering if maybe just coming back to a mile where she is, two wins and 1 second out of 3 starts might make the difference. But it's mostly going to be Spenderella for me.
Uncle Sully asking if we hate Chad Brown, should we speak of the devil? But then he said, never mind, the devil has Flavian Pratt. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Fluffy Socks is probably the best of these Chad Brown horses. But, I think is only what? Well, it's 2-1-0 at the distance. You have to go back pretty far to where they had her run only a flat mile. So, yeah, I don't know. And that race at Saratoga, I mean, we're going back to 2021, the Lake George, did have a fair bit of pace in front of it, which I don't think she's going to see here. So, and that was the technical analysis, I think, went wire to wire in that race, right? But yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a great handle on this besides. I'm going to use Spenderella, and I think Mark just doesn't want to talk about it because we already hit him with the defensive B alert, and we'd probably just keep that alert going the entire time because he'd have all the Chads. Am I right,
Yeah,
Mark?
really quickly. I like Sister Luann quite a lot in here, who's the Safi horse who's going to be obviously scratched. So that crossed that one out. And the reason I like that horse was I just hated the rest of the field. And I thought that might be a new, fresh face who, I don't know, maybe had some upside left. I've been a huge Fluffy Socks fan forever. She's got a ton of hang. I think the Chad Brown barn just isn't firing. So I ended up on the super uncreative Wakanaka and Spenderella bandwagon, who I just don't feel like I don't love them, but I hate everybody else. So I land on those 2 horses, and it just, man, it feels like a race that I have to buy to get coverage if I'm in a horizontal, and I hate that feeling. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah. I just hate this race. I think literally everybody can win. Yeah, Spenderella's your most likely winner. She's obviously very talented, but she's just never quite, I don't know. There's something about her that I just have never been like, wow, she blows me away. So yeah, the pace complexion, she's probably your most likely winner. It's amazingly uncreative, and I just hate this race.
I mean, if you think everybody can win, don't you throw Spenderella out?
Yeah, it's probably
especially if you're taking 3 out of 5 in the previous race with a 3 to 5 favorite.
Yeah, that's probably the smart approach, but I'm just not that smart.
All right,
not a great
let's
race.
Yeah, no, and then race 6, the Knicks go. I mean, I don't know. This is just another race I didn't like have a super strong opinion on here. Zozos is going to be the 5-2 morning line favorite. I mean, I kind of like a horse on the inside that I've bet numerous times, and one time did make me some money, but hasn't in a while, and that's the 2 Mask Parade. I thought he was interesting as kind of a pace presence here on the inside, but I mean, you got some pretty nice horses in this race. Zozos is, whatever. Baby Yoda shows up in here. You have Kyle River on the outside. So I'm actually kind of curious. I don't think I've looked at the optics plot yet for this. So let me pull that up here. And they have this as a pretty contentious pace in here. They got the 42 speed rate. They got a red plot fit. So the standard and optic and the surface of distance don't really match up very well here. But Mask Parade is this big old kind of Q1, Q3 square here. They like obviously the 11 Kapuna a little bit here as that Q1 square. And yeah, I don't know. The pace is kind of weird. And even if it does get kind of hot, I mean, you're kind of left with horses like Zozos, 3 Technique, and Noble Drama here at a huge price. So I'll probably just take my shot with Mask Parade in this spot. Maybe I'll use use a horse like, I don't know. Maybe I'll use Cotto River. But he doesn't look to fit that great on the plot. I don't know. Caleb, what did you kind of think here?
Yeah, I do agree with you. This is a tough race. None of the short prices really did a ton for me in here. So I do kind of like your pick of Mask Parade. I think that this is a nice horse. The layoff's a little bit concerning, as well as the fact that this horse is kind of inside drawn speed, I guess with the one who maybe looks in over his head a little bit. And it does seem like there's going to be quite a bit of speed in the race. But I do think Mask Parade, especially at 6-1, is a playable horse in this race. But like I was kind of leading into, I don't really like the short prices. Baby Yoda, I just can't seem to ever be on the right side of this horse. He'll show up with a monster race and then lose a race that it seems like it would be impossible for him to lose. So he's just too inconsistent for me for a horse that always takes money. Caddo River, Zozos, I mean, yeah, they could win, I guess. I wasn't really super impressed with Caddo River's race last out. I guess that looks a little better when you see that Smile Happy came back to win today. But I still just haven't ever been the biggest Caddo River fan. And then the other, I mean, yeah, Zozos is fine, but of the 3, short prices, he might be the one I like the least. I've just never really had a lot of confidence in this horse either. I'm not sure that those fairgrounds races have translated super well. We saw OTWL Power pretty much not run a step today, and Art Collector wasn't a whole lot better. So, yeah. So anyway, all that to say that I kind of landed on a bomb in here that I like, which is the number 7, 3 Technique. And this is a horse that, a 6-year-old horse, he's 4 for 28. He's not exactly a win machine. And he does need some pace in front of him. But the reason I kind of like 3 Technique in here is that arguably the 4 best races of his career all came at Churchill. If you look at what he did at Churchill last summer, including winning this race actually at a huge price, he then came back and even though he didn't necessarily win, he ran some good races. Some of them were a little pace compromised. Some of them, didn't get the best trips, but it just seems like he's a different or better horse at Churchill versus over at Turfway or at Keeneland or whatever else. That 6.5 furlong race was clearly a prep in my mind last out to tune him up for this race, which you have to think is the target considering he won this race last year. So I really like 3 Technique. I think he gets enough of a pace set up in here to make an honest run. And if he runs back to one of those Churchill races from last year, I think he could be dangerous in here.
Yeah, so I know Josh already talked about both the 2 Mask Parade and the 3 Baby Yoda. Those are the 2 A's that I'm most interested in this race. I think that I don't love either one of them, but I think they're very likely winners of this race. I'm somewhat against Cotto River. That last figure seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. I wonder if the horse bounces a bit off that. Some of the previous back figures that went in the Cox barn were quite a bit better. And it seems like the horse maybe, obviously coming out of the Cox barn, is not normally something you want to bet a horse, a horse back to. So I'm somewhat against Cotto River in the spot. And some people in chat are talking. I have the horse marked down as a B right now, and I don't know if it's going to be a B or an A. I may move some things around, but horse I'm very interested in is the 8 Promise Keeper. This is a horse that, it runs some really nice races, runs some figures that very much fit within this company. I tend to not love taking a horse out of the Pletcher barn, but this one's been out of the Pletcher barn for quite a while, since August of last year. In the Dallas Stewart barn, it has been gelded, looked like gelded in January, and has been working pretty darn nice since then. A horse that, I would imagine Louis will have this one, not necessarily on the front end, but fairly forwardly placed, maybe sitting 5th or 6th kind of in this field. And I think if you get anywhere near that 15-1, Promise Keeper is a really interesting, player in this spot. I think the pedigree really should like a mile as well. So that tiny bit of cutback off some of those previous figures. And I think Promise Keeper at a bit of a price could be a major player in here.
Foxhound saying gelded at 5, tough look. He understands what he's missing.
Yeah, it is. That's a little rough, but
Uncle Sully also pointing. I saw Charles B. I highlighted him earlier. He says he likes Promise Keeper. He gelded previously trained by Pletcher, and Uncle Sully also asking is like, why is Louis on this horse? And
I will say it is a little interesting that Louis ends up here because he does not historically do well for Dallas Stewart. I'm looking in the last year; he's had 10 mounts for Dallas and no winners. Which for Louis, you're giving Louis 43% or something on the meet. He's obviously a very high percentage jockey pretty much year round. Seems a little odd, but I think it is interesting that he does get back on this horse that he had ridden previously for Pletcher, and I think all of his wins were with Louis up. So it's an interesting combo, getting back to a jock that seemed to get him. And also when he was with Louis, they kept him a little closer. Louis is definitely a more aggressive jock. You don't see those, 3, 4, 5 lengths back. He does seem to keep this horse a little bit closer than others have. And I have a horrible feeling that if a bunch of people in chat are on this horse and I'm on him as well, that maybe I don't get my 15-1. But I think this is an interesting horse, even down to say like 8-1 range.
I think you should be more worried that you're on it than the people in chat. That it brings the price down. But
I had price. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking, Caleb. I was thinking about 3 Technique. I'm like, man, he boomed us at a big price in the race, and it was this race last year. I was trying to remember. I saw a little bit of talk for the 11 Capuna here, and I think it was Fighting Irish in chat mentioned this one. Interesting how it kind of lines up on the standard plot. I mean, that pretty decently sized Q1 square. So, looking at the PPs, I mean, I don't know if Brett Calhoun just doesn't know what he's doing with this horse or what. I mean, they tried it on turf last time and had the lead at the top of the stretch, and then it just seemed the horse was just empty. It looks like got outkicked. But a couple of those Oaklawn Park races and even that fairground race, they look pretty good. This is no, this is the same distance. I mean, he has been going a little bit longer, but has basically gone anywhere from 7 furlongs to 1 mile and 3/16. So. I don't know. Interesting. Horse has been working really well too. I haven't looked at the works reports for tomorrow yet. So this is one that I was a little bit interested in. I mean,
to take the other side of Capuna, I think to me Capuna is a horse that's been class exposed. I know Josh and I always talk that class doesn't matter until it does matter, and this is a horse that, as he's stepped up in class, has not fired. When he's in an optional 62 or an optional 50, he fires his race. When he gets into those classier allowance races, he doesn't seem to bring his A game. And again, we're stepping up in class here versus much tougher foes. So I just really think he's going to be way over his head. I do realize he fits on plots and he makes a lot of sense. And I think you'll get every bit of that 10-1, but just not one for me.
Colin mentioning that Dallas does great on undercards on big days.
He does. He
also does great at hitting the board in the Derby, right? Isn't that like his claim to fame, that he always gets horse to hit the board?
I don't know if it's in the Derby, but I know he definitely clunks up with a lot of bombs.
So congratulations to Zozos, the one horse that nobody likes. So I'm sure
Who gets the
he's a
lead
shoo-in.
here?
I'm guessing Kapuna, but Kapuna's also kind of put out wide. Maybe Mask Parade. I don't know.
That's
I
what
think
makes this
it's
race
tough.
tough for me. Is maybe even
Gulfstream Way.
Gulfstream Way, probably from the
Yeah,
rail
Gulfstream Way
stretching
from the rail.
out. Like you'd have to think that horse is likely to be forward. Probably has no chance to win, but the pace is messy here for me, which is why I kind of struggle to get a handle on this race, and it's kind of why I'm gravitating more towards an off the pace runner because I could see the race being pretty contentious up front.
I can see
mean,
Mask Parade also being very much a part of that early pace complexion as well. So,
what about Knee Deep in Snow on the stretch out? I mean, got the
He
lead
also
last
could be
time,
yeah,
going 6.5
could also list to be
furlongs.
before they placed. Yeah.
So
HTR actually loves Knee Deep in Snow in that race. I don't know that I necessarily see it. I don't know if it took 27 starts for the 7-year-old to figure out that he's actually a miler, but
And
HTR likes it. So
he's been in everybody's barn too. He's been all over the place to a bunch of big name trainers, and of course I've tried to like. I think he ran on the Preakness undercard a couple of years ago, and I was all about him, and then he did what he does.
yeah, Counting's 1-9. So yeah, Knee Deep in Snow and the one horse that Gulfstream Way. Do you guys just before we move on? Do you guys remember that Ohio Derby stream we did? And we're all like, man, we all like a price, and it was Mask Parade, and then he ends up going up the
yeah,
favorite in the
he was
Ohio
like 10 to
Derby.
1, went off
He was
like
like
2 to
10 or
1 or
12 to
something.
1, yeah. All
At
right.
least he won.
Yeah, he did win. Yeah, and hey, we had a nice call, right? And we all had it in Stable Duel. But race 7, turf sprint, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. I love this race. This is such a fun race. And I think your favorite's going to be Big Invasion at 7-2, or at least on the morning line. But you do have the presence of the 10 horse Arrest Me Red here for Wesley Ward. Kind of fired a bit of a dud at the Shakertown. I guess finished third to Caravel, but Bad Beat Brian actually got the jump on him, and Bad Beat Brian is 15 to 1 on the morning line, and I was a little bit interested in the horse at that price. But my top pick in this race was actually the 11 Motorius. This might be my best bet of the day if we get anywhere near the price. I'm looking at Caleb. Caleb, do I get this price?
No, I've heard everybody on this horse.
It's my top selection in here as well. So there's no way in hell that you get 8 to 1. Maybe half that. Maybe.
I'm very unhappy right now. And
He
apparently
won't be the favorite, but he's going to be 4 to 1, 7 to 2, 9 to 2 in that range.
Yeah, I just thought that he was gonna, kind of sit that mid pack trip, and I think he's got the kick to outkick everyone in this race. So I was really interested in Motorius. I guess Mark, why don't you take it? Where did you kind of land here?
I think I basically bought this race. This race I think is wide open, and I don't have a really creative opinion with any sort of prices. I think the logicals make a ton of sense. It also wouldn't surprise me if a random 20 to 1 pops up and wins. I sort of ended up with most of my stuff going through like the big invasion, nothing better. Arrest Me Red or Motorius, and I think those, who are probably your top 4 choices, I'm sure, were the horses that made the most sense. There's a million different ways you could go in this race. I just thought it was a really wide open affair. I wasn't really horribly against any horse. And there's a few horses that are probably going to take money that I won't use. Somebody like Caratori or somebody who I have no interest in, but I just thought it was a really wide open affair, really great betting race, and a real nightmare to start off this Mando pick 6 sequence.
Caesar feels bad for me, at least. He said my price went from 8 to 1 to 3
makes
to
one
1
of us.
And then Alex is asking, how does the downhill translate to Churchill Downs? You don't really see that very often, do you?
You don't see it often. I can't speak to how the down the hill translates to Churchill. I will say that typically at Santa Anita anyway, milers cutting back with speed typically do well running down the hill. This horse clearly handles anything from 5 to 6.5. So I don't know how this horse will translate to 5.5. It won a flat 5 at Del Mar, so I'm assuming he'll be fine, but I don't know.
What about you, Caleb? Where did you kind of land here?
Yeah, so I think this is a really tough race, but I think it's a fun race, like you said, Josh. I think there's a lot of horses you can make the case for, but the two that I like the best are number three, Evan Singh, and number four, Big Invasion. I think that Big Invasion will start there as he's the favorite. I mean, I thought for a while he may just be the best turf sprinter that we have. Caravel certainly has something to say about that, but he's really been doing a lot of heavy lifting up in New York for most of last year, and then he came back at Gulfstream in the Silks Run. That was a race that had a relatively slow pace up front, and the pace held together very well. I mean, you didn't see a lot of changing of the running order from the horses that made the lead, except for Big Invasion, who just tipped out wide and just kicked it into another gear and kind of blew right by them. So I do like Big Invasion. I think he's going to certainly get a better pace setup today, and I think he's quite talented. So I like Big Invasion, and kind of along that same line of thinking, I like Evan Singh because again, I think this race is going to have a very fast and contentious pace. I mean, I could see probably five horses that all look like they need the lead in here. I recognize it's a turf sprint. Sometimes that happens, and one just is quicker and wires anyway. But I'm going to play some of the off the pace runners because I don't think any of the speed horses are really that formidable. So I'm going to go with Evan Singh, who I haven't decided how I want to handle the fairgrounds turf races yet. My gut feeling was to downgrade them, but I've seen some horses come out and run okay or even run well out of the fairgrounds turf. So maybe that was a little bit too harsh just because their turf condition was in poor shape. Doesn't mean those are poor quality horses. So I think second off the layoff, horse ran a great race last time out. Pretty much came back with what was a career top, but not a monstrous top that's going to make me worried this horse might go backwards off that. So I think Evan Singh gets a good pace set up here and is a very talented horse and should be able to close in coming late. So those are kind of my top two selections here. But to Mark's point, I think I could probably make a case for about five others.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Caleb,
and
I got.
oh, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to ask Caleb a question here. So, Arrest Me Red is 4-1 on the morning line, and somebody had brought this up in chat. And it's something I had been thinking about as well. Bad Beat Brian, who beat Arrest Me Red last out, is 15-1, and Caravel kind of is flattered both of them. I mean, is the morning line maker just really wrong, or it seems as though I kind of think Bad Beat Brian is at one of the prices in here does make makes quite a bit of sense actually.
I think Bad Beat Brian is fine. I do think the Caravel point is valid. I mean, she ran a good race today and
Yep.
sort of franked the form of that race. But Caravel made the lead and went wire to wire. This horse was second and finished second. So I just wonder if he didn't just. We saw
Turf
the
out.
Keeneland turf course this past meet was pretty forward almost the entire meet on the turf, and I wonder if that wasn't more just a product of the track and the flow of the race. It's kind of been a while since this horse has won a race where he didn't get the lead, if he's ever won a race where he didn't get the lead. And I can't see him getting the lead in here. So yeah, at 15-1, I'm not against that horse whatsoever. But I think a lot of people are going to see the same thing we're talking about, and he'll probably get back down a little bit.
Yeah, I like Bad Beat Brian in this spot, but I pulled up the optics plot here. I'm a little concerned about the pace here, and the more I've looked at the optics plot, the more, and someone mentioned it in here. Where was it? Oh, Uncle Sully mentioned it. He said we're talking about a 5.5 furlong sprint. No one's talking about the Wesley Ward, and although Irad hasn't been riding exactly lights out. I mean, on the optics plot, the 10 looks pretty good. If you like the 11, you probably should like the 10 a little bit. So I don't know. There could be a world where maybe the 10, the 10 at 4-1, I think is a fair price. But I just think that Bad Beat Brian's going to be up against it a little bit more because he's not going to be just dueling one horse, although he was dueling a very, very good horse. I think there's a chance that there's a lot more speed in this race than there might have been in that Keeneland race. So, and that's kind of why I landed on the 11. I think the 11 is going to kind of sit in that third or fourth flight of horses and be able to get the jump on a bunch of these tiring horses just from the outside. So,
So the ward horse that I was interested is the other ward horse who Johnny V's up on, and that's Go Bears Go. I think if you look at the optics plot, I have a feeling optics is probably looking at that Breeders' Cup turf sprint from last year, where Go Bears Go absolutely, or well, got beaten up pretty early, and then was swung, I think, 7 wide. They have the trip notes added in the upper, and just had an absolutely brutal race. And I think you're getting Johnny V right now on this horse who he's absolutely winning everything. It's not tied down. Johnny V's been riding absolutely phenomenal so far this meet. And if you go back to the previous year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, the one at Del Mar, that race fits a lot better in this field. I expect Go Bears Go to be kind of, I don't know. He's not going to be on the lead. He's going to maybe be sitting a few lengths off, kind of that, and get that sort of first run closer type of trip. He probably needs a little bit of a setup in front of him. But I think Go Bears Go is actually, kind of interesting in this spot, given some pretty darn dirtied up form.
All right. I think we need to get Matthew out of chat because it's very rare that we have anybody thanking Mark for anything. So there's just too many good vibes coming. No,
to Matt's point, Wes Ward is 43% with new horses into his barn. And that's what or 44% with a $2.45 ROI. So yeah, again, very good betting race. There's a number of sort of interesting other type horses, beyond the top 4 that I think we already have talked about.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't meme on the Ravelli horse here. I have Mark as an A. I'm probably not going to use. I think I might. I think I tried to make a case for it on Gino's podcast for using this one. I was like, oh, just look at the 5.5 last time at Churchill, right, with Corrales aboard. I think this is maybe a little bit tougher of a spot for him, and I don't think he's going to get it. I don't think he's going to get 23 and 46 and 1 going 5.5 with this crop. So,
but he does have the best name ever for a gelding. So
no balls. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of ways to go here. A lot of
like what do you say? Like Foxhound said, right? He understands what he's missing.
Yeah, but he hasn't had him for a while.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of prices in here. I mean, I don't know that I love Go Bears Go, but I agree that it's a horse that could win. I'd look back and be like, yeah, I mean, I could see it. A lot of horses like that, I think.
I mean, we're talking about all these prices just for Big Invasion to win at like 6 or 3 to 1 or something. So
I mean, there isn't any elite sprinters in here like Caravel, but
hey, Caleb, one other sort of Caleb-y type horse, the 14 Noble Reflection. Any thought? I mean, I hate the poster. He's drawn in the freaking parking lot, and that sucks. What? Do you just complete toss for you?
Complete toss, yeah. From that post with that run style, that probably isn't that fast anyway. I can't use that horse.
Okay, my thought is new barn. He's fired really well his last 2. They seem to have figured out that he's actually a turf horse. So, okay. Cool.
Different post, different pace complexion. I mean, maybe, but I mean, he's going to have to be tons the best to win from there, I think.
Dude, Stephen Fox just woke up and chose violence. So I know it's Derby Day, but people calling Caravel an elite sprinter need to be called out. Horse just ducked everyone and everything. Caleb,
I mean, she won the Breeders' Cup.
She won the Breeders' Cup, and they're cashing a check, and they've already sort of implied that they're going to Ascot with her, and that was just to cash a check, get her an easy win, and then go ship her. So
I mean, I agree. It was some cowardly shit, but you couldn't name 3 better turf sprinters. Not if you could name one right now in the states.
But quick question before we move on to race 8 here, Caleb. What's in your glass?
I'm actually drinking some scotch. I got some Talisker.
Talisker 10?
No, it's one of the special. What is it called? I forget. It's
More importantly,
did you bring double matured and something or other? Here it is, Distillers Edition, double matured sherry cask single malt.
Did you bring it in?
I did not. I left it in the room.
Okay. Mark, what are you drinking? Still more Little Book?
We got the Little Book. Yeah, I broke back out the Little Book for tonight. Good stuff. And Matt, I would imagine that to your point, I would imagine the reason that Johnny V's up on her is Rad's probably not going with the wards again to Ascot. I would imagine he's going to the old fart who knows how to not be looking behind him when they pop the gates open.
That was a bad look. Yeah, I got Eagle Rare. So I
Nice.
got a little bit of Eagle Rare here, and then I did bring the bottle in, but I brought a bottle of Buffalo Trace in with me, so I don't
Smart.
drink all the Eagle Rare. But Pate Mile, we going a mile here for 3-year-olds that did not have enough points to get into the Derby. That's a condition, right? Isn't that the condition?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like I don't know if this is a weak rendition. I don't know if that's fair, but
Seems
I
fair
feel
to
like
me.
yeah, like I just feel like we don't have at least like the one or two like horses that were on the Derby trail, maybe won one of those early Derby preps, and then like it was very clear that they're distance limited and they didn't get in. I mean, like you got horses like Fort Bragg who ran in some of these races, but didn't really do much. Same thing with like horse like Bourbon Bash. I mean, I guess you got General Jim who won the Swale, but yeah, I don't know. I thought this was kind of an interesting race. I will pull up the optics plot since that's usually the first thing I look at. And yeah, this is just I feel like this has been. Oh my
Steven's
god.
comment.
Steven is
Kangaroo
on
Court named
fire
after
right
Churchill
now.
Down operators who suspended Safi. Goodness.
Well played.
Oh my god.
Charles is saying that the small circles were winning, so that's what he's looking at. So I don't know if that means he's looking. I don't know how small he's looking at, but you got I don't know. They seem to think that Kangaroo Court's probably the fastest early in this race. Maybe Echo again, but Echo again's a big old circle here. But I think that also like to the point, I think they might have tried to make that horse run further than he wants. So I don't know. I don't know if maybe they cut it back in the allowance race, and I think kind of ran a little bit better. But Caleb, where did you kind of land in this race?
Yeah, so this definitely feels like one of the worst editions of the Pat Day Mile that I can remember, because I looked at this race and like at a glance, I think I recognized like two horses like that I've actually heard running somewhere else. Like, so yeah, that was surprising to me. Um, Actually, in chat, Alex clearly knows me quite well, because I don't know that I would say this is like not a horse I'm going to single or anything, but one of the horses I will certainly be using in this race is the number 6, Frosted Departure. And he called out the exact reason, honestly, in that she's caught a lot of sloppy tracks and she just doesn't really seem to like off tracks. Excuse me. He's probably been keeping company with it's a little bit too tough. Maybe some of these Derby contenders trying to go 2 turns in the slop just maybe hasn't been working out so much. But if you kind of throw out some of the sloppy races, the fast track races, with the exception of the Breeders' Futurity, which tends to be a quirky race, they've all looked good. I really think that this horse it could be sneaky. We've seen McPeak have a very strong Keeneland meet, and he's pointed, I think, some of his better runners to Churchill, especially on this weekend. And we saw Smile Happy come through in a huge way earlier today. And I think Frosted Departure has that kind of very versatile run style on a cutback that probably sits, second or third in this race. And honestly, just works out a really nice trip. And I think with the fast pace or the fast track, could be up involved in the pace and maybe have something left. So I really do like Frosted Departure in here. The question I have a little bit is maybe around the Lasix, whether or not he's just better on Lasix versus off. But I tend to think it's more the sloppy track, but I guess we'll find out.
I mean, if you go back right to the September race, that race also fits very well. The optional claimer on 7 furlongs. So, and that was also off Lasix. So, it does have at least one nice race in there off Lasix. So, who else, Caleb? Anybody else?
So I wasn't sure what to do with Echo again. I'm sure Mark's going to use him, so I'll let him talk about that horse. I don't know that he really wants to go a mile. I think he got it last time against a terrible field, but he's always sort of struck me as a sprinter or maybe just like a very precocious 2-year-old that never went on with anything. So I wasn't sure what to do with him, and I'm certain he'll be overbet like he has been essentially every start of his career. I didn't care for the 1. I don't trust the Calbred form to translate over here. So, I mean, I guess the other horse that I, kind of gave a look to in here, I had a number of others, but we can come to them later. Another one that I gave a significant look to, I suppose, would be the number 9 General Jim. And I think this is a horse that, if you go back and watch the Mucho Macho Man, pretty much never got a clear run, likely would have won that race. And Lord Miles was in that race, who we all saw come to win the Wood Memorial, a start or two later. Uh,
Shout out
General
Andrew
Jim,
Champagne.
yeah, that's right. We know at least one person was on him that day too. But yeah, I mean, I think General Jim, and he came back and won the Swale at Gulfstream, beat Super Channel, who came back out of that race to repeat and win. So I think I think he makes sense. He's not a sexy horse. He's not a horse that I'm like, I feel strongly about him. But he just sort of makes sense. He always kind of shows up, and I'll be using him in here.
So was he right, Mark?
Somewhat. No, I do have the 5 marked down as a B. I echo again, marked down as a B. I know Caleb dunked all over the the California Shipper and Kangaroo Court. I think that the top 2 horses I landed on were the 1 Kangaroo Court. It's still to be said, can this horse actually get a mile? He was getting pretty desperate at 6.5. Will the added furlong in a bit be able to handle that? I don't know. We'll see. But time form fix came back really strong on this one and has a run style that was sort of working today. So I'm willing, if I get sort of 8-1 to take that shot. The other horse that I was really sort of interested in is the 7 Fort Bragg, who, again, I don't know if this is one that will love the cutback to a mile. That's where he broke his maiden at. And he ran okay a little bit further. But I guess he technically broke his maiden and was taken down, I should say, at a mile. But I thought Fort Bragg made, a fair bit of sense in this race as well. Those were the 2 that kind of jumped off the page, me on time form figs. And when I look at a race like this, where you're still trying, a lot of these lightly raised 3-year-olds, everybody's pointing for the Derby. They figure out they can't get in the Derby and they're trying to figure out what do they actually have. Oftentimes you see these types of races where somebody jumps up and surprises you a bit. So, I ended up on the 1 and the 7 with, as my 2 A's. And there's a few others in here that I'm a little interested in at some prices that I don't quite know what to do with. But I don't know, I want to kick it over to you. And where are you at, Josh?
Yeah, and Caleb, I know you've probably did a little bit more replay work than I have because I've done 0. But that Florida Derby, Fort Bragg ran kind of a better than looked race, didn't he? Like I think he was just short.
Yeah, I mean, he ran fine, I thought. It was one of those trips you hate to see where it's like you kind of miss the break and the jock panics, then goes into full send mode, and, it just takes a lot out of a horse. So, yeah, I mean, that's a race that did come back to the closers who ran, your dead closers ran 1-2 with Forte and Mage. So I don't think that race is a bad race by any stretch.
Yeah.
I have more just concerns, I suppose, about fake West Coast figs and Tinyactine shipping anywhere, especially to Churchill.
Yeah, I just remember that there was only one of the Baffert ex Baffert horses that I was kind of interested in going forward, and I think it was Fort Bragg, just off of a losing effort, but I thought Joel kind of gave a good enough ride that it was his only option, right? Like he had to go, and he kind of missed the break, and he had to hustle. Like that was his only thing. And I thought the horse kept on for a lot longer than I thought, at a lot faster pace than I thought. So I think that the horse is going to appreciate the cutback. I'm unsure of the price. 9-2. I mean, that I think would be like the absolute like minimum I would take. I would hope to maybe get a little bit more, and maybe I do, because maybe some of these other horses take a little bit of money, like Echo again, who takes money everywhere. But at the same time, people might still be betting those West Coast figs that you're talking about there, Caleb. Yeah, I was really interested in the 7 Fort Bragg. And then the other horse I was interested in was the other Steve Asmussen horse, Gun Pilot. Only question is I mean, really, he probably should have won that Hot Springs, right? I mean, he had a pretty fast pace in front of him, and he kind of ended up a little bit short there that last race. But I don't know, that February 4th race I thought was kind of showing a nice little progression coming into his 3-year-old season, and he's just kind of regressed 2 races in a row. So I'm curious what kind of happened there. I kind of forgave the slop work or the slop race. I know Gunrunner loves the slop, but I don't know. We'll toss that race out because of the slop. But really, that Hot Springs he should have won, and I think that's why you are getting 5-1 on this horse. But he was one I was a little bit interested in, especially if we get a bit of pace in front. I thought he's one that might be able to close into it, but I don't know. I was really I'm really mostly interested in the 7 at this point. Yeah, I don't really have like anything super creative here besides 7 and 12. So I don't know. What are the other horses you guys wanted to kind of talk about?
Yeah, I'll talk about one horse you already have pulled right up right now, and that's the 8-horse Bourbon Bash. And the only reason I have no reason to like this horse, besides the fact I don't understand why Flavian Pratt is on this horse unless this horse is live. Flavian gets off the one who, in my book is one of the better couple of horses in this race. And I mean, maybe he's playing the argument of he just thinks the horse is, short, but you don't normally hop off a horse. You had 2 consecutive wins on to hop onto a horse that you've never ridden before. Pratt has done very well when he rides for the coach. So I don't know why he's on this mount. Maybe the horse only is a clunk up for third type, but I thought it was just just a little interesting that Pratt ends up on this one. So that was one that I sort of liked. I'm sure Caleb has some other smarter opinions than my dumb one.
I mean, I didn't like Bourbon Bash, but I don't think he can't win the race necessarily. I mean, I probably downgrade the 1 more for Pratt getting off than I upgrade the 8. Is kind of how I read into that. But
Okay,
it could be
I respect that. Yeah.
There were 2 other horses I kind of want to talk about at least briefly. The first of which was the 10 Curly Jack, who was a really talented 2-year-old, and then I'm not sure if maybe just perhaps just hasn't really developed or continued to develop as 3, but he's now making his 3rd start off the layoff after kind of running 2 fairly uncompetitive races. The Risen Star, or excuse me, the Louisiana Derby, you can probably draw a line through, which it had a insanely slow pace, and it was really tough to close that day. The Risen Star, I mean, he did end up beating about half the field despite running 8th by 10, but maybe he's just not that good. But I do think getting the cutback here, especially at Churchill, where he's had by far the best races of his career, I thought he was a little bit interesting in here. He's kind of have one of those weird, running styles that Brisnet has. It's like a P8 or whatever, or P3, excuse me. So it's like he can be forwardly placed, but he's also like a presser. He doesn't really want the lead. So he's an interesting horse, I thought. And getting back to Churchill, I'm wondering if he can rediscover some of that 2-year-old form.
I mean, on optics, right? It makes it look like he's going to get a pretty clean trip from the back, right? Like, I mean, look at all these horses up front here, and then you got this big old square back here. So
isn't there also the case with Curly Jack that maybe as they started trying to stretch him out, he just didn't take to the stretch out? I mean, he's got some races as a 2-year-old that actually, time for him would put them as players in this at a touch shorter distance. So yeah. I think he's an interesting player here.
Yeah, and I agree with Charles. I'd rather see a different jockey take the mountain here, but I respect Tom staying with his local guy, I guess. But the other horse that I kind of wanted to give a look to, and bear with me, is this 14 Freezing Point. And I recognize they have him at 50-1 in the book, but I mean, what about his last race means he can't win here? I know he ran 3rd; it was an allowance, it was a listed stakes. But I mean, by far the best race of his career, not from a speed figure standpoint, perhaps, but just from a result standpoint, was going 1 mile at Churchill. And he hadn't shown a whole lot prior to that, and then shows up at a Churchill going a mile and ran huge. Throw out the Turfway race, he just didn't handle the surface. And then he comes back at Keeneland going 7 furlongs and ran an okay 3rd, which I thought, was maybe even a little better than it looked. If you kind of look at the way that race went, I mean, it was wired on the front end. The 3rd place horse pretty much sat 3rd the whole time and passed 1 horse for 2nd. So he was the only horse to really come from further back than, a length in that race. I thought he ran a nice effort. Might be a little sharper here. Might let getting back to a mile. He's not a horse I want to make a strong, you need to include kind of argument for. But I think 50-1 is a little bit silly on this horse. And I think there's some big questions about some of the shorter prices.
My
Yeah,
only
so
concern is how is Corey Lannery going to get from the 14 post to the rail?
He did it
there
today
it
in the
is.
first
He
There
race.
it
did do it
is.
today,
There
and
it is.
what did he do? And he freaking hit the rail like an idiot. My goodness, I still can't believe that.
I was just saying, you want to talk about a jock downgrade? Corrales to Lannery. Let's talk about jock off a jock.
I mean,
cliff.
technically, Lannery's the only one that's won on him. So, but yeah, Charles agrees. 50-1 is ridiculous. Horse is better than that. I do appreciate, and you know what's funny? Like Uncle Sully always comes in and says, "Oh, which jockey we're gonna bash today?" But like, I think the reason he asks this is because he just wants to know if we're gonna bash one that he can kind of like jump in with, because his comment is just Edgar Morales. Don't even get me started. But
There's some stories there.
yeah, Alex does like the horse as an exotics horse, and honestly, I mean, yeah, hey,
It's a bad line. It's just a
100.
bad
But look
line.
at dude, Joe Lesurowitz or whatever is 100% third off the layoff and 100% sprint to route. Look at this.
That's right.
It's
He
this
is
horse.
also 100% when he puts Corey Lannery up.
Stats don't
There
lie.
you go.
I mean,
Just like
we know-
Irad Ortiz has
that's-
never won the Derby, so goodbye Forte betters. Yeah, I don't know. This was a really tough race. And also, Caleb,
mentioned one. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
you do have one other horse that you want to talk about. I know.
Oh, I do want to talk about number 3, Lugan Knight.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you have to.
I mean, there has never been a horse with the word Knight in his name that I haven't bet, and I'm not about to start when he's about to be 40-1. So,
Are these all the same owners that own all these night horses, or is it just?
No, I think it's just sort of a common name. I mean, he probably can't win this race, but no, I was going to say Uncle Sully mentioned the 2. He won't make any of my tickets, but I don't know if you guys were using him.
Nope, no way. I mean, yeah, I really can't say much for him that, in his favor. That 1,000 Guineas was a nice race. I just don't know where it came from, because he boomed me that day. And he absolutely ran up the track in the in the UAE Derby, and Dubai Bounce is a thing. It does tend to correlate.
Stop it.
It correlates until it doesn't.
If there's any day we're not talking about Dubai Bounce, it's today.
Because we're all on the same horse.
Yes.
Yeah, that's because we're all on the same horse. No, I mean, I don't think you get 20-1, but he's not a horse that, I mean, Doug shipped him to Dubai to try to get him a cheap win. I mean, that's why he wasn't competitive in the States. So.
Yeah, I will say I am a bit interested in your 6 there, Caleb, and I probably will end up using the 1, just because I love speed, and he's gonna be on the rail.
I respect that.
And like, I don't know, these are always tough races, right? Because you really just don't have any like full out straight line, like I need the lead type speed. I think the 1 might be it, but I don't know. The whole like being only in state breds and then coming into to open stakes company always bugs me a little bit. Who's the horse that lost today? I already forgot.
A lot of them did, Josh.
Yeah, the state bred horse though, the one with all the big figures. You're
talking Money's Gold was in Florida.
Money's Gold.
Yeah. So, all right, race 9, the American Turf here. We're going to be going a mile and 16th on the turf for 3-year-olds. And you get the return of a couple of horses, Major Dude, who, had a really nice race at the Kitten's Joy. And then they got Derby Fever, ran second, and got dummied by 2 fills. And, got beaten so bad that he decided to go back to the turf. I think the other short price in here is a horse that scratched last time he was entered. I think he was entered somewhere at Keeneland, right? Carl Spackler, who had that really, really impressive maiden win February 25th at Gulfstream Park. Shows up here again for Chad Brown and Jose Ortiz, 3-1. If this horse is still running tomorrow, I don't think you get 3-1. I think this horse is going to take a ton of money, but similar to there was another Chad Brown maiden breaker that took a ton of money today in the in one of the races, and like the 5 horse, I forgot in
yeah. I don't. I'm not gonna call
I
him.
know it was in the Papilia race, the
Yeah,
race whoever won that, the 8 I think it was, Heavenly something or other.
Yeah.
yeah. So, so it's just this is kind of like that weird race where there's like probably three horses that are going to take all the money. I didn't mention Farbridge, but that's another one. And then like if you like any other horses besides those three, I think you're going to get your price. So Mark, as the chalk eating member of the trio, I'm guessing you're using all three equally.
I'm using none of them actually. We talked about this beforehand. I am using. I'm gonna be on a couple of, I mean, I kind of have to stick to my guns and stick to what works for me. And I want some forwardly placed horses on this turf going a mile and a 16th. So one of them is going to be the 8-horse Mustache. I realize Victoria Oliver's stats on what graded stakes won for $1.5 billion or something. But I think Mustache is arguably your leader here. I don't know. It may end up on the lead. I don't know what their intent was or is here, but Luis has sticks. I thought that Transylvania was a very, very good race, and I like Mustache at 10-1. Right back off the Keeneland win here. Other horse that will be very, or beyond all my tickets is the number 5 horse Johannes for Tignac Teen. I think there's a question of does the California turf form translate, but this horse has won 3 in a row, 15-1 on the morning line. You get Pasta shipping in for this one, who's done really well on these Yak Team turf horses, and the horse is perfect over the green stuff. So I thought Johannes would made a lot of sense in here. And then the 4 horse Talk of the Nation. I know Caleb was telling me, I saw the price on this one and was absolutely shocked, but I guess this is a hype horse or a steam horse or whatever you want to call it, and a lot of people are very behind Talk of the Nation. So another horse who's reeled off 2 in a row on the turf, albeit they were at Tampa. So say what you will of that. But a horse that figures came back really strong off both those Tampa races. And Shug is pretty bad. Seems to get him good, and they stay pretty good. So I thought those 3 who are all quote unquote prices on the morning line, and those are going to be my 3As.
Who was your third one, Mark? I know you said
4, 5,
Mustache
and
and
8.
Talk of the Nation.
4, 5, and the 8.
The California horse, right? Okay.
Yeah, the California horse. Yep.
I mean, I love Mustache in the spot. I think we talked about this a little bit before the stream. I really like.
You've
Mustache.
never seen an horse you didn't like, so.
I mean, that's also true. So I mean, we're not going to get. We're not going to. We're not breaking new ground here at all. But yeah, I thought Mustache is going to be. He's sitting up front as a nice Q1 square in the spot. And he looks even better on the surface at distance. But I know we have a couple of other horses that don't have a run there.
Yeah.
I forgot. Do we have early scratches? Is the Ward horse scratching in this race?
I am not aware if it's happened. I haven't heard anything, Josh, but
that was one that I was a little bit interested in. Just like I said, from a pace perspective. But yeah, I think Ben says yes. I'm assuming he's answering me. Yeah, I think I don't know. I have a hard time getting around Major Dude of the short prices. He seems to be one that I like the most in here. I ran second to a really really nice horse that is an A for me in the Kentucky Derby in 2 fills. Was favored in that last race, but let's look. I mean, he ran a nice figure there. I think that figure is probably faster than any of these other horses have run so far, albeit on the Tapeta. But I don't know. I think coming back to
Talk of the
turf,
Nation's got a bigger fig.
I'm looking at Brisnet. I don't think Talk of the Nation is even close.
Oh, I'm looking at real figures. So
yeah, Talk of the Nation's 8 points slower on the real charts here. But I don't know. I thought Major Dude was just going to sit a nice trip in the spot. I had a hard time using anybody but Mustache in this spot. So I don't know. What about you, Caleb?
Yeah, I think this is probably the best race of the sequence, other than the Kentucky Derby, obviously. But this is a tough race because
Hmm.
I can't really knock the three short prices. Major Dude is fine. I mean, I've been against him a lot in his career, and he sometimes I've been right, sometimes not. But he's a fine horse, and this isn't a crazy spot for him. Far Bridge, I mean, has looked insanely impressive visually. Goes to the Fletcher barn, which doesn't really impact my opinion of him whatsoever, but he's been very impressive. And then Carl Spackler to the far outside is another who, had a very impressive match race with Far Bridge in that debut, and then came back to just romp home next time out. I guess seeing the way that Chad Brown's barn is going, I may be a little inclined to take a soft fade position on Carl Spackler, but any three of those could win, and like wouldn't surprise me at all. But there's also like four other horses that I think are prices who I also think are extremely interesting. Alex brings up the three, Mendelssohn March, and yeah, that's one of them. I think for sure. Ran won his debut via disqualification at the fairgrounds. Um, I think that that was a fairly strong race. I mean, the figure for a debut effort came back pretty strong. He was also inside that day, and pretty much the entire meet at the fairgrounds, you did not want to be on the rail. So I think the fact that he was able to do that work while being on the inside was pretty impressive. They tried dirt, probably got some Derby fever. He was okay, but if you look at that pedigree, I mean, come on, that's turf. So I think he looks interesting. Mark's horse, the talk of this nation. If you're a figures guy, that's definitely your pick. I think you get about half morning line on this horse, but I kind of have some bias, believe it or not, against Tampa shippers.
Shocker.
So yeah, I'm not sure how much I really think of him or of the figs. He'll be a very price dependent play for me. Um, and then yeah, I mean, Most Ash is kind of a similar take, I guess. I mean, if you do like Talk of the Nation, I guess you might like Mustache. But if you don't like Talk of the Nation, I certainly don't think you should like Mustache, given how that race went when they met each other last time out. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a difficult race. The only like long shot that I'm truly going to make the argument for beyond maybe Mendelssohn's March is, believe it or not, the number 13, and the winner is. This was a really nice 2-year-old colt. Won a couple of stakes races at two, went into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, and ran fine. Ran seventh. Split the field and finished. Basically only 3 lengths back from Victoria Road and Silver Knot, who are two very good European horses. Throw the dirt race out, didn't make any sense. But then came back at Sam Houston and won a race that you may want to discredit because it's Sam Houston, but beat a pretty good turf horse in Private Creed there. Um, and then came back and I think had legitimate trouble in each of his last two starts. He got just pounded at the break, two back at the fairgrounds, and then just looped out real wide, lost a bunch of ground. And then last time out was following the move of the number 14 in this race, Webslinger, and had the steady just really bad. Essentially never got set down until the race was already over. This is a tough post to win from, and I'm not crazy about Catalano adding blinkers, but I think this horse is better than his record would indicate. And I'm willing to take a shot at 3-1.
Yeah, the 13 was actually a horse I was super high on going into the BC Juvenile Turf, and it wasn't until I was actually in the paddock and saw the eventual winner, Victoria Road, walk past, and I just remember. And Caleb, I think you might remember this. I go back up, and the people we were sitting with, Lynn, just comes over to me and she goes, "Did you see that one horse?" I was like, "Look, I don't know anything about horse flesh, but that one looked past, and I'm like, that's a fucking horse." And yeah, sure enough, he ended up winning. He basically got me even for the day. That and betting Lynn's horse at Turfway, or
Turf
not Turfway,
Paradise.
Turf Paradise. Oh man, but yeah, if for some reason the pace gets really really hot up front, I could make a case for the 13, and the winner is. I kind of liked Webslinger a little bit as kind of like a price play, just with that late pace rating, and being just a huge square here on optics. So I thought like if we were to get a lot of pace, and Optics does think that there is a bit of pace in here. A 50 is pretty high. Usually anything over like 35 or 40, you start really, actually maybe it might be 30. You start really looking to the middle to the back of the plot there. So I thought they were both interesting, if not win contenders, play as underneath. But Ben Wilkie
So
is talking about a horse that has not drawn in yet, but with the scratch of the Ward horse, there's a chance he gets in, which is the 16 Scooby Quando.
see,
That gets
that's not the horse that's not in the field yet that I'm shocked that neither one of you has talked about.
what, the 15 Wadsworth.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, Wadsworth has a pedigree that to me says should really relish the turf. It's as a horse that's coming off 2 Turfway Park, races, and or what 3 Turfway Park races, won 2 of those. And I've been told by wise people that running on synth moves every horse up or something. So I'm amazed, and you're getting Brad Cox, you're getting Manny, who he goes to with a lot of mounts, especially in his Naira stuff. I thought Wadsworth was really interesting here at a bit of a price, and a horse that probably gets a little lost on the board as well. No, neither one of
He
you.
could run. I mean,
Okay.
he's not a horse I'm like super interested in, but I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't use him. I just think he's fine.
Okay.
I'm actually trying to find the Churchill Downs scratches for tomorrow, because I think they had posted early scratches.
Robert
for
in
tomorrow.
chat just said Wadsworth is already scratched.
Is already scratched. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that sucks. No, and I will say, I know you guys talked about Carl Spackler, and I realized that last race was impressive, and Chad normally spots his horse as well. I think the horse takes a ton of money off that last effort. I think the Chad barn is just not running well right now. And you're going to give me a 2-1 or 5-2 kind of range on a horse that's a maiden breaker last out, going versus a pretty damn accomplished field. I mean, maybe the horse wins, but it just, to me, that seems like a terrible horse to get super excited about betting when there's a lot of other, way more interesting players in this race. I mean, can the horse win? Totally. Is the horse going to be massively overbet based on relative chance of winning? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, the scratches for race 9 are the 12 and 15.
Well, that sucks.
So yeah, and actually, there's a
scratching
scratch in the
out
Pat Day
does-
Mile.
Who's in the Pat Day Mile?
Oh, Midnight Rising, no one cares.
No one cares.
Race 7 is a 13. I think that's an AE. No, Artemis City Limits.
Little
and-
speed, but wasn't
Artemis scratched out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
race
not
6 is
surprising.
the 4 Perfect Flight. I don't think we talked about him.
No, we didn't.
Okay. But so Scooby Quando is going to draw in. Any interest in that horse?
No.
No? Christophe Lemaire gets aboard?
I mean, do they give him a head start or something? I mean, otherwise, I don't know.
you were talking about the horse before, definitely screaming for turf. Don't you think this is definitely screaming for turf?
Just,
I mean, it is.
what's the horse ever done to say that? I mean,
Finished second in the Battaglia. It's a congruent.
to who?
I don't know. Hey, Christophe Lemaire is picking this mountain up. I thought that was interesting.
I mean, I've bet jockeys before. You've also done so, Josh. I've made worse wagers than that, but I shouldn't talk anybody off of 30-1. But I just can't see it.
Have to march to the arch.
Do you remember that horse, Josh?
Of
Or is
course,
it
I
before
do
your
march
time?
to the arch. Yeah, I bet him to win the Wood by Mile like 3 years in a row, and he just kept on coming up
Just
short.
Kept not doing it.
Me too,
Yeah.
actually. Him, an Olympic runner.
Yeah, there you
God.
go. Yeah, I think Caleb and I were on that horse like every single time that our horse ran. Yeah, all right, race 10 here, going 7 furlongs, Churchill Downs Stakes. Scratch of the 1, White Barrio, obviously, and then we are also scratching the 2, CZ Rocket. So both of them are scratching out of here, which means Hear My Song here is going to be on the rail, the 3 horse. And this is the return of the 7, Cody's Wish. I'm actually really bummed that White Barrio is scratching from here because I thought that he was actually in here with the shot, just with kind of the like looking at the pace of this race. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of early pace, especially for a sprint. Um, you know, I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time seeing how Cody's Wish loses this, but because the only time he's lost, going back to his maiden, was when they stretched him out going to mile 16th, and that's clearly not what this horse wants to do. So, and was able to close in. You kind of go back to that forego. Didn't have much pace in front of him there, or actually did have a bit of pace. I don't know why. I don't understand why Briz has that as a slow pace, but was able to had a humongous closing kick in that race, coming from basically last to first. So I don't know. I have a hard time getting around Cody's Wish in the spot. There's one bomb that I'm interested in, and I'm sure it's no surprise to anybody. But I don't know, Caleb, Mark, you guys got any thoughts on this?
I'll go quick
Uh,
since I don't have much. I think Cody's Wish is the horse here. I'm not going to try to beat him. I want to try to beat him because I think he could be vulnerable from a pace perspective, similar to what you said, Josh. But there's just no speed horses in here that are worth half a damn, at least not as
Mm-hmm.
far as I can tell. I don't even know if I could pick the horse that I think gets the lead. I mean, it might be the 8, but I mean, it's far from a guarantee. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to go down with Cody's Wish. I normally don't like to bet these Breeders' Cup winners in their next start, especially off a layoff, but he's just been so consistent. I mean, he loves this track, and it isn't like he's a dead closer. I mean, he's been forward in a lot of his races. So yeah, for me, it's an unoriginal, boring pick, but I don't see how Cody's Wish really gets beat here.
Identical take to Caleb. I'm not gonna go up any further than that. I just it's hard to get past Cody's Wish in this spot.
Yeah, the only horse that I was interested in using, I think Caleb kind of touched on, was the 8 Fortin Hill. This is like a D type, if it were a thing, or I've lost every single bet during the day and I'm tilted. Now I'm going to try and beat Cody's Wish. I don't, Caleb. I don't know. Does that sound familiar to you?
No, I've never done that.
The horse that you've had singled the entire time, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to try and beat this horse instead because it's the only way I'm going to make money.
Yep.
But I don't know. I thought Fortin Hill is going to probably be your pace setter. Corrales is going to be aggressive on this horse, and there's just not going to be any type of pressure. But
Well,
although this horse has put up some competitive, some like decent numbers, they've all been losing efforts. So, and they've been at Gulf, or one of them was at Gulfstream, and then at Belmont. So I don't know. Has won a couple of optional claimers. I mean, I think in over his head a bit in the spot, but I think he's the one horse I think is going to definitely be aggressively ridden with Corrales aboard. So and did fire a bullet, 5 for long bullet. I mean, I don't know, maybe we'll see something, but
yeah. So Josh, I mean, Matt did bring up something when you were on the Trust the Profit stream earlier today, which is this idea that jocks read the form too. Any chance in here that we're all saying, God, there's no pace in here. There's no pace on paper at all, but that all the jocks will read the form and going, maybe I'll be a little more aggressive. Maybe I'll try to get that front end and go. And all of a sudden there is legitimate pace in here. I realize none of these horses have really ever shown that, but any chance that happens?
I mean, if it does, I think the other horse that might be the 10 Endorsed, which is probably the most competitive horse to Cody's Wish. The problem is that competitiveness has been done almost exclusively at Gulfstream Park. And if you want to talk about fake figs from the West Coast, let's talk about a little place down in Florida called Gulfstream Park. They're just different surfaces. I think horses that do well at Gulfstream don't necessarily always travel. See Safi Joseph, but I don't know. I couldn't make like a great argument for any of these other horses because I do want someone to show some speed. I mean, like, you mean to tell me some like Sir Alfred James is going to outkick the Breeders' Cup winner? When he's already run like 27 times this year, like, give me a break. So I mean, I was trying to make a case for Tejano Twist, but he's the same horse as Cody's Wish, just worse. You know, it's really tough to see anything in here. I saw someone I was talking to had mentioned maybe Hoist the Gold gets aggressive with Luis Saez aboard. But to your point, if Hoist the Gold is going, and Fortin Hill's going, and then Doris ends up going, well, doesn't that just set up for Cody's Wish? You know, so I don't know. I think my comment to Matthew saying that was it doesn't seem like Jock's ready to form any ever, but yeah. I mean maybe they all get told the same thing that Caleb, myself, you see. There's no speed in here. Be aggressive. They all tell their jocks to be aggressive, and you know maybe we do actually get some pace in here. But I'll take some kind of shot with Fortin Hill, but.
Robert
I did single the 7 in my 2-day pick 6, but I'm already dead in that. So
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, Josh. There, Robert asking about the 5 getter number for Peter Miller. My thought on that horse is that very similar run style to Cody's Wish, and I just think Cody's Wish is a better horse than getter number. But anybody else give getter number a shot?
Stephen Fox saying, "Don't ask Mark, but ask Caleb, because you have a better chance to get her number that way."
I got it. Yeah, I don't. If you look at Get Her Number on time form, like the thing that jumps out to me is basically every race except for one has blue color coded fractions on his form. So he's been trying to close into a bunch of slow paces, which makes me want to upgrade him a little bit. But the problem is, I think he's going to have to close into a slow pace again today, and against a better field. So I think it'll be tough. Hear Me Song, who I don't think a ton of really, was able to close, better than Get Her Number last out, and I don't know that I think Hear Me Song is necessarily a player in here, but yeah, I mean, Peter Miller does have a tendency to show up with horses like this on days like this, so it really wouldn't surprise me if he gets this win. But it's a tough horse for me to use.
Yeah, interesting about this race as well. If you look at Hear Me Song, best races probably at Churchill, and I think we've said that for a couple of these longer prices.
It's not going to be sloppy, or unless you're going back to that optional 100.
Yeah, but at the same time, what are you doing with that information, right? Like, I don't know, maybe this is a horse you key underneath.
Underneath, I think
this price.
Yeah, I think if you attack this race, that's the way to do it. Is you take your medicine with Cody's Wish, and then you look for a Hear Me Song at 30-1 underneath, or some Fortin Hill at 20-1. I think you try to work endorsed out of the exacta. You try to get Tejano Twist out of the try, and maybe that's how you attack this race. I don't think there's value to be had if you think it's that chalky. Then I would just skip the race.
Yeah, Foxhound here. I know he was talking a little bit more about kind of like the betting theory that you have to try and beat Cody here if he's going to be single in every single late pick 5 ticket, and I can see I definitely can see that that strategy, and he said so that's why I say he's Dorse as an A and Hoist the Gold as his B. I mean, I think if you're going to take a stone cold stand against him, I think it's probably endorsed, but I don't know. I just don't feel great about it. But hey, I mean, if those Gulfstream figs only traveled, I mean, I think he would probably be a major player in here. But I don't know. I think the 7-year-old's kind of up against it a little bit here still.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else in here?
Not for me.
No, it's just we probably talked way too long about that race, and Road Warriors showing up and choosing violence. We realize we're not covering Belmont, right, Road Warrior, right?
Oh,
do you realize that?
No, I think he's talking about this, the Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic.
Okay.
Yes, we're talking Belmont. Going a mile and eighth on the turf here, the Turf Classic. So obviously, I believe we're scratching the 2 out, and we're scratching anybody else. Oh my goodness, I had the scratches up too, and then I decided to click on something else on Twitter. Race 11, we got the scratch of the 2, and we got the scratch of the 4. Steady On is also scratching. So yeah, I think that changes the complexion a little bit in this race. Let me go ahead and cross them off my form here. I actually liked Masterpiece a bit earlier in the week. I thought that you were going to want to try and close into this race because I did think, and I have some of the pace setters in here circled. I thought that there might be a bit of pace here. I know Mark is probably going to wax poetic about the 3, but we'll talk about that later.
No. You can wax poetic about the 3.
I wasn't going to use a 3.
No.
Really? Yeah.
Are you okay? Are you sure you're feeling okay?
I honestly thought that Up to the Mark was a borderline single in this spot. And then people started calling me crazy. Like everywhere, every which way, people thought I was crazy. That I thought Up to the Mark might be a borderline single in this race. I don't know why. Like, what did that sound? Oh, there it goes. That was weird. So I thought Up to the Mark was like a borderline single, but apparently like that's a crazy thought. And Caleb kind of looked around kind of weird. I don't know if it's because he heard the weird sound or if he thought that was.
Yeah,
also
I
a
heard the
crazy
sound.
thought.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh no. But I just kind of think that there's going to be a bit of pace in this race. I thought that he was the closer that made sense in this spot, and I just didn't really think it was necessarily close. I mean, he's this big old square back here, and I don't know. I just thought that this was going to set up nicely for him. This race is unfortunately not on synthetic, so Wolfie's Dynaghost was basically an automatic toss. If I were to take any of the...
hold on. We all know who your Derby horse is. So it's... go on. We'll talk
about it. Yeah, but...
Okay.
My Derby horse also has won on the Churchill Downs dirt in the slop. So he's got to run over.
So something we're not going to get tomorrow. Got it. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought this was going to set up nicely for the 5 Up to the Mark. I don't remember if it was maybe talking with Caleb on Thursday, but another horse that he kind of talked me into, I think, was the 9 Spooky Channel. I had originally kind of just dismissed the horse, but if you kind of... I don't know. The last couple of races have been very, very strong, and like if you just toss out that JB Connolly that was just entirely too far, maybe for him now as an 8-year-old. I mean, these races fit in here. I know they were both on that weird fairgrounds turf, but I don't know. I thought he was going to be interesting. He might be the horse that kind of gets first run on them before a horse like Up to the Mark. So I don't know. I was a bit interested in the 9. And then obviously Santon has got 2 wins at Churchill, and basically the 2 best races he ran last year were both here at Churchill. Now maybe the surface has changed a little bit, but I thought this is a horse that I'm not going to let beat me. It's a horse I'm going to use. So I was 5, 8, 9 in this spot. Caleb, where did you kind of land?
Yeah, so I do agree with you about Up to the Mark. I'm not quite as bullish on him as you are. But I certainly think he has to be included on all tickets, especially since he's in all likelihood not going to be the favorite in here. If you figure he was a neck away from beating Modern Games last out, over a track that was playing very strongly to speed, and he was behind Modern Games the entire race. So, Modern Games would be 2 to 5 in this field. So, yeah, I think Up to the Mark has to be used. Even if you say Modern Games maybe didn't show up with this typical effort. To be fair, the entire Appleby barn didn't really show up that weekend, but regardless, I think Up to the Mark has to be used.
Also important to note, look 2 back, Caleb. Who did he beat?
2 back?
Yeah.
Olympic runner.
There we go. We just talked about him. There we
did.
Go.
So yeah, I think this horse is very talented and just getting better at the right time. Beyond him, I agree with you also about Spooky Channel. I don't need to touch on that really anymore. He's like my new channel maker, I guess, now that Channel Makers doesn't win anymore. So I'll be except I'm at the point now where I can actually root for Spooky Channel. So he's, despite being 8 years old, he showed he still has it this year with 2 wins and a pretty good third. I will disagree with Josh about Santon. I think he's an absolute rat. Churchill's turf last year wasn't even real. I don't know what it was. It was like some artificial AstroTurf putting green or something. So some horses freaked. Speaking of the devil, Santon. Some horses ran bad in Italian, but then went on to have phenomenal careers. So I don't think the turf this year looks anything like what it did last year, and I'm not using Santon anywhere. That horse can beat me. Beyond that, I'll let Mark talk about Wolfie's Dynagos because he kind of did sell me on that horse a little bit. I wasn't initially going to use, but he probably will make my ticket. The only other one that I'm going to use, but maybe not at 7-2, would be Hong Kong Harry. I generally don't like West Coast turf horses coming to the East, but this horse looked really good in pretty much every start up until his last, where he just looked flat. Maybe he needed that start off the layoff. D'Amato has been pretty good with the horses he sent over to Keeneland last meet. I expect that to continue to Churchill. 7-2 is not the price for this horse, though. I would need like 5 or 6-1, but he is one I think that could win this race.
Yeah, so I mean, really quickly, I'll talk about my top 3 selections. That's the 7, 8, and 9. I think you guys have covered Hong Kong Harry Santon and Spooky Channel adequately well. All 3 of them are logical players in here. They all make sense. They're all horses that I think they're probably your top 3 choices, and I think all can win. If you're win betting, there's a price that's right, and I think if somebody takes a ton of money in here, then there's going to be value to be found other places. The horse I'm really interested in here, though, is the 3 Wolfie's Dynaghost. I never quite know what to do with him. I know probably one of the best and worst moments I can ever think of sitting at the NHC was in 2020, what would have been 2022 NHC. We're sitting there, and Josh and I are both chit-chatting at 2 tables, and we're both firing win bets, and we saw the price Wolfie Dynaghost was going to post at. First time getting on synthetic or on the Tapeta down at Gulfstream, and we both fired some pretty nice wagers and had a massive score, and we just didn't bother telling the tables that we were sitting at who were actually in the NHC that we were going to fire at Wolfie's Dynaghost. Or it didn't do an adequate job convincing them that we were firing.
Okay, so let's tell the story the correct way.
Tell the story the correct way. Okay,
the horse that both our friend Bobby and Sheldon liked was like 25-1.
Yeah.
So although Wolfie's Dynaghost was a bomb and was 20-1, I'm not about to go tell somebody who's in a tournament that, hey, don't bet your 25-1 or 18. It was a bomb. Don't bet your bomb. Bet my bomb. So. I know Sheldon was a little bit not miffed, but he was just kind of like, oh well, I wish you guys would have told me. But he was on a horse that was paying a ton as well. But
I think Josh and I both paid. We split dinner that evening to kind of offset things. We both had a very nice day because of Wolfie's Dynaghost. But no, I mean Wolfie's. There's an argument to be made that is he really a turf horse? He's a horse that has done his best stuff over synthetic. He's got a lot of speed. He's going to be very forwardly placed, or he should be on the lead, or maybe co-leader with the one Ocean Atlantique, who I don't think has a chance of winning. But Wolfie's recently, his last 2 starts, he's looked like a different horse after moving to the Jonathan Thomas barn. He seems to have definitely taken a step forward on any figures that I look at. He looks like he's maybe, I don't know, is he? Again, both those last 2 were over synthetic. Is it a case of he just is over the surface that he just really loves, which is synth? I think he's 3 for 3 over synth tracks. Or is it a fact that maybe he's taken a bit of a step forward with the barn change? If he's taken a step forward, he might be dangerous here. He might be able to handle the turf, and he may just be able to wire this field. So I do really like Wolfie's. He's a cool horse, a horse that I have no problems rooting for. But you have to kind of use him appropriately. If he ends up short, I'm not interested in him. And I think you have to. He's probably a B type at best for me in this field. So he's not a horse that I want on every ticket, but he's definitely a horse that I want some coverage too.
The one thing I will say about Wolfie's Dynaghost, and the reason that I would maybe lean to using him, is because what the second place horse from that race came back to do.
That's what got me too, Josh. Verstappen came back.
Verstappen came back to win at a humongous price on the Keeneland turf, and just absolutely showed a turn of foot, a really, really nice turn of foot coming down the stretch. And the fact that he held off a horse like that, although it was on a different surface, maybe the barn change, maybe that's gonna maybe the rider change, maybe Johnny V staying on this horse. maybe that's worth something. But when you look at the plot, I mean, you got the one horse, Ocean Atlantique, kind of on there, but once you kind of move back to the surface distance plot, I mean, he does look like he might get the lead. The 10, Bye Bye Melvin, has got a lot of kind of front line like Q1 speed, but once you kind of get to that second, he just seems to flatten out. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of how optics is showing it. I know Charles was kind of looking at the 10. Yeah, and Foxhound says the plot for the 10 looks like he might still be running his last
That's
race. So.
patented Q4 circle or Q3 circle. Rather.
Q3 circle, like which like just like don't win. But yeah. So
What do you do with these 6 Earl's Rock in here? Who is a horse that, again, there's 2 Clocker Report horses that were in this race, Wolfie's Dyna Ghost and Earl's Rock. Louis Saez hops up on this horse. Again, West Coast Invader coming into this race. It shown some pretty okay form at Santa Anita, and then just kind of didn't ran okay in the American. What do you kind of do with this one? I mean, again, another one I think you mentioned before that D'Amato can be dangerous in these kind of spots.
I want nothing to do with him, really. I mean, I think Hong Kong Harry is the horse that he's kind of here for. This one feels like it's just as cheap as ship 2 as it is as ship 1, and he needs a race anyway. So yeah, I don't think he's good enough to win. The Clocker Report work was dated from March 20th, so I don't put a lot of stock into that either.
Okay.
Not for me. I don't like West Coast horses anyway, but at least Hong Kong Harry has some form against other sort of decent horses that have been successful on the East Coast. But yeah, I don't know about the 6.
On Ben Wilkie pointing out he thinks the plot's completely wrong for the 10. You guys have any interest in the 10?
I have no interest in the 10, but I couldn't see his point about the plot being wrong because all those marathon races are probably kind of skewing it to make him look worse.
Yeah, I do think the plot's wrong. I mean, I don't know, maybe, but it's a bit of a stretch kind of a horse.
I mean, I think he's going to factor into the pace, which might, like I said, might hurt Wolfie's Dyna Ghost.
Yeah.
But I don't anything else on this race because this next one might take a while.
Nope.
I don't think this next one takes a while.
You don't think it takes a while?
I really don't, because I think we're going to be very much in agreement.
So congratulations to the winner of the Kentucky Derby, 2 fills.
Okay. Maybe not that much.
Not that much in agreement.
Oh man. I mean, I think we just have to start to say like this is probably one of the weirdest. I mean, at least since I've been following racing, which I know is not very long, but this is definitely the weirdest Derby week I've seen. Just with all the nonsense, but then now we're seeing all the scratches come out, and I'm sure we probably said the same thing last year, right? And then we got some random ass horse rich strike that got in, and Caleb didn't bet it, even though his girlfriend told him to, and that led to that didn't lead to a heater for some reason. I don't know why it didn't work that time, but yeah. But Foxhound is just pointing out the most important part that Rocket Can is going to make the gate, enjoy my bourbon, and I have a backup with Cyclone Mischief. So hopefully Rapoli wasn't right, and they're not going to scratch down the 12 horses or whatever nonsense he said today. But
was that Rapoli that said that?
I don't know. I thought
it was a trainer, and I thought it was. Yeah. Anyways,
I don't know. Someone said maybe it was.
Someone said it. Yeah.
I'm not gonna don't quote me on that because I have no idea. I just know someone had mentioned that Rapoli had some fun comments in his interview. But I think that might have just been more towards Forte scratching. But yeah, we got a real. Oh man, we got a heck of a field. Practical Move is done. Skinner, one of the steam horses, gone. Lord Miles, trained by Safi, no longer in. Sorry, Andrew Champagne. Who am I missing? Continuar. You had no shot. Is that it?
I think that's all.
Okay. But all the AEs have gotten in, and yeah, Rapoli said it as a joke, so it was him. But yeah, so I mean, I think we should probably talk about the horse that this entire Derby starts and stops with. And let me keep scrolling here.
You just scroll by
So
him though.
yeah, the 17 Derma Sotogake. I think the entire this has got to be so. I feel so bad for the connections of Derma Sotogake that they have all three of us on their horse as possibly the top pick. I did see on the imputed odds or the implied odds from the Oaks Derby double, Derma Sotogake is somewhere in the neighborhood of 6-1 currently. I think when I last saw the early betting, he was sitting around 8-1. Luckily, I believe Caleb and I have him at 25-1. I think Caleb's got another bet. What do you got him at, like 20-1 or something?
16.
16-1. So we I don't know. I'll obviously use on top and exacta, try, super, but I don't think that Durham is going to be in a spot where I can win bet. But I also kind of have it covered with a futures bet, so I'm not going to feel too bad if he crosses the line and I get 25-1. But yeah, I mean, for the only question I have now is with the scratches of some of these horses, you get a horse like Cyclone Mischief in here, who might also add a little bit of pace to the race if you kind of go back to his Fountain of Youth. But I mean, the other two AEs don't really have much speed. So, I mean, does the drawing in of Cyclone Mischief change your mind at all of the pace of this? That Dermo's probably going to go to the lead and probably doesn't have to go super fast early.
I don't know that I'm convinced Derma goes to the lead, but I don't think Cyclone Mischief's really going to impact what Derma does. I think he'll be forward, but if a horse like Jace's Road or Reincarnate is intent on getting the lead, I don't think Derma's connections are going to go out there like last year with Crown Pride and just insist on being forward. I think he's totally fine to sit fifth or sixth, honestly.
Mark?
I don't. I would tend to agree with Caleb. I think they're probably not going to go to the lead. They're probably going to try to get cover third through sixth, something like that. Going to depend how he breaks. I don't know if that's I don't know if where his placement is that massively important to his success in this race.
All right. Well, I mean, we all agree on the 17. I mean, I think that UAE Derby was super impressive, and I mean, we couldn't wait to see what the odds were on future bets after that UAE Derby. So, and I think some of it is just because we aren't super impressed with a lot of the horses this year. Obviously, the favorite currently, Forte. I don't know. Like I've probably trashed this horse more than most, but it. And I was telling Andrew, it's not so much what Forte has or hasn't done, but the separation between a horse like Forte and some of these other horses in this field, I mean, it's not that much, and the price is markedly worse. So it's more of a value perspective. If Forte wins this race, I mean, is anybody going to be like shocked? It's not going to be Rich
No.
Strike shocked. It's not going to be. I don't even think it's going to be like authentic shocked. You know.
Well, I'll put it this way with Forte. When I start capping the Derby, my first capping thing that I've always done, this goes back 30 years, is looking for horses with over 100 Beyer speed fig in a prep, and there are only two of those left remaining, and those horses are Forte, Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he did pop 100 Beyer, and Mandarin Hero, the 22, who drew into the field, and in a losing effort to practical move, pulled up a 100 Beyer speed figure. Those are the two that sort of meet that criteria. So, in that regard, Forte,
You forgot another horse with 100 Beyer.
on the surface, Josh, on the surface. And unless they moved the Derby to Turfway, that it's a moot point. So there's two horses in the field that have a surface buyer speed figure of 100. But my biggest issue with Forte, or Fort, I guess I guess he's now Fort.
No, it's
What's the
Forte.
what's
I refuse to call him Ford.
Okay, cool, good. Okay, so we're gonna keep calling him Forte then. So my biggest issue with Forte is just his run style. He's a plotter. He reminds me all the world of Orb, and I realize Orb did win the Derby, but Orb also probably ran into one of the weakest classes in the history of 3-year-olds to win the Derby, and I don't think there's any monsters in here. I don't think there's any crazy great horses. I think Forte is a very good horse. It's just the fact of I just can't get excited to bet him. Again, looking at I know Josh was pulling up or talking about the Oaks Derby doubles and therefore implied odds. It looks like you're going to get what, like sort of 4-1 range, I think, on Forte, which is probably a really good price given his chance to win. But my thought was, looking at this race, I thought he would be more like 5-2, and I don't know. I just wanted somebody else in here. He's done everything he's been asked of so far. He just never is that impressive. He just kind of a plotter. He's a grinder. I just can't get excited there.
Yeah, since we're talking about Forte a little bit, I mean, I fully expect Forte to run well. I don't think he's going to win, and I don't like him to win, but I fully expect him to run well. I don't think he's going to run last or finish up the track. He's a nice horse, but I think Mark points out that he has 100 buyer, which is correct, but that's from November of his 2-year-old season, and it's very concerning to me that he has not been able to get back to that number at 3. Yeah, in fact, he actually went backwards in his last start in the Florida Derby. At a time when horses should be moving forward. I'm not convinced that added distance is his friend. Now, whether the extra 16th is why he went backwards a little bit, or whether it's something else, but yeah, I mean, Forte is just a very okay horse that I think has done what he's had to do. But the fact that it doesn't look like he's sitting on a big race, there's nothing to suggest to me that he's primed for a new top, given the way he's kind of ran his last 2. I don't really want to bet him in the Kentucky Derby. I don't think that distance is his friend, and I don't think that a horse that's going to need some racing luck to work out a trip is a horse that I want to take as the favorite. Hasn't really ran back to his 2-year-old form as a 3-year-old. So yeah, for me, I'm not on Forte. My other kind of point is that I feel like when Todd Pletcher complained about the post, it like created this narrative that like, oh my God, you just can't win from the 11 post at Gulfstream. And I'm just like, I mean, yeah, it's not ideal, but like it isn't like he won from the rail in the Derby or something, just like with some Mind That Bird-esque ride. Like, I mean, he was 2-5 in that field. Like, he was supposed to win that race, and he didn't look all that great doing it. And from the 11 post, he actually got a really good trip, as much as you could hope for from that post. So I don't buy the trouble. I don't buy the post, and I just don't think he's that good.
Yeah, Foxhound, to your point of him being your Belmont winner, I could not disagree with anything more. If you watch Forte in the Florida Derby, Mage went rolling by him in the run out. He was absolutely life and death to get a mile and an eighth. I don't know if he can get a mile and a quarter. I honestly think Forte might be very distance compromised. I don't think the stretch out from the Florida Derby to the Kentucky Derby actually helps him. I think it may be a detriment to him. And I didn't bring that point up, but I think that's another, sort of another strike against him. I think he's very distance compromised, and he probably wants to be going a little shorter. Really, Josh?
Stephen Fox just sent me this meme. So I don't know, Galaxy brain over there. I did laugh. Ryan Johnson's asking how he cannot excite us, and he says that Forte is a gamer, and I mean, I think part of it is you kind of look at the horses that he beat outside of the BC Juvenile, right? And it's just, when a horse runs like that at 2, you just want to see some kind of step forward, right? He didn't need to step. He doesn't need to step forward a ton. He just needs to step forward, and he just hasn't in two starts. And like maybe this might upset some people, but like I don't like Mage. I hated Mage in that Florida Derby spot. I know everyone was talking up like, oh, Mage, like this is going to be big, and then he misses the break, and which I hate when these horses they miss the break and then they make this big sweeping move, and everyone just loses their mind, and I'm like, it's just
What else did
Tacitus.
you expect? What else did you expect him to do? They
How
had
many
to do
times has
that, right?
Tacitus did do that, right? And everyone just loved Tacitus, and it's just like, look at it, okay. I'm not going to talk someone off of 15 or 20 to 1, but like that happening, the fact that that happened in the Florida Derby, and that the difference was only a length, doesn't move Mage up. It should be damning against Forte, in my opinion. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying too hard to look for reasons not to like the favorite. But Forte winning wouldn't surprise me. My problem is that I thought the entire time Forte was going to be 5-2, and in a field that he shouldn't be 5-2 in. It looks like he's going to be closer to 3.5, 4-1, and maybe that's closer to right. I mean,
it's hard to mentally reset when we've been looking at the Derby for months, and we have this idea that Forte is a vulnerable favorite. He's going to be 2-1, 5-2. We don't want him, and then all of a sudden he goes 7-2, 4-1. I mean, maybe even 9-2, which I don't think will get that high. But the point being, it's hard to mentally walk that back and be like, is he actually usable now? And because no, I hate him. Yeah. But it's hard to change your position when you've been building to this point for weeks.
We've talked about one horse we like, right? And I hate that we've spent like the last 10 minutes talking about a horse we hate. But continuing on the hate train, and let's say I dislike Forte. I dislike a horse like Mage. I hate Tapit Trice. I think this is probably the worst bet in the Derby. This is worse bet than Forte.
Trice with Josh's money, quite honestly.
I don't get it, right? But like at the same time, I don't blame people who look at figures. They see this horse. Horse won obviously by a neck at the Bluegrass, but like we're talking about a horse that won the Bluegrass and won the Tampa Bay Derby. And people are talking like this is a horse that won the Santa Anita Derby and won, won like the major preps, the preps that have generated Kentucky Derby winners. But we're talking about the Tampa Bay Derby and the Bluegrass, which have generally been two of the weaker preps.
His run style is also massive against the track. He tends to basically just not get out of the gate, it fall a million lengths behind the field, and then make this one big, long, sweeping power move. In the Derby, you're not going to be able to get away with that in a 20-horse field or 19-horse field or whatever we're down to now. I just think he's going to have way too much to do late. He's going to be way over bet, given that it's 4-race win streak. And I mean, yeah, he's gotten it done. I was against him in both the Tampa Bay Derby and the Bluegrass, so maybe I'm a little spiteful at this point. But oh god,
was I even born when Street Stunts won the Tampa Bay Derby? I don't even know how old was
you were, but
2007 or something.
Yeah, but you didn't know what horse racing was at that point.
Well, I'm thinking of Street Cry. That's older, right?
Maybe.
I don't think she won. I don't know what kind of horse he was. I've seen it in the PP.
Yeah, well, the Street Cry was a Machiavellian line, but anyways, but yeah, I mean, I just Tapit Trice is your stereotypical 3-year-old Tapit who is a complete head case, and I just in a big field scares the bejesus out of me, and I can't go there. I think. He's got a grinding run style. He's got a grinding pedigree, but the mental aspect is just not even close to being there yet.
Yeah, I guess I can't believe I'm the one that might be mildly defending Tapit Trice here, but I think he's probably the most talented horse in the field. Honestly, I don't know, but I don't. I mean, we'll see what Dermot brings. But
I don't have an alarm for this,
but I mean, I just think this is a tough combination of variables for him to win. It's not that he breaks slowly or misses the break. He's a big horse with those big strides. It just feels like it takes him a while to gather himself. And a lot of people are saying that this post does him no favors. And the more I think about it, the more I tend to agree that a slow striding horse, slow into stride horse from the 5 post. I'm sure Pletcher would be very happy if he could swap the post of Tappet, Trice, and Forte, because I do think there's a world where he gets into a lot of trouble. But that being said, I think he's extremely talented. I really do. I think that if he comes back in the Belmont, which I kind of expect him to do, he would certainly be my pick there.
He's
I
my
think
Belmont horse.
those broader turns, the more gradual sweeping turns at Belmont with less horses and more ground, I think all work to his advantage compared to the big field or the slightly more speed favoring surface, and then the tighter turns at Churchill. I don't think really are going to work for him in this case. But I think he's probably the most likely horse to actually hit the board.
So he's not fat. He's just big boned, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's just a thick boy. He's chonky.
I mean,
who are we hating on next?
Yeah, who are we hating on next? All right, another Kingsbarn, the sick.
Kingsbarn. There we go. Yeah, my issue with Kingsbarn is I realize everybody loves him, and the fact that he's 1-3.
Does anybody love Kingsbarn? Really? I haven't heard anybody come out.
I've heard tons of people talking about how Kingsbarn.
Evil Bob Bill will tell you about this phone call, this call last night where Kingsbarn came up quite a bit, and I think Ben Wilkie might be in the chat. I think he's a huge Kingsbarn guy.
The take I hear on Kingsbarn is, his figures are slow, and I mean they're really slow on any metrics I follow. But he won by so many lengths, he just wasn't asked, and therefore didn't fire his A game. I mean, he's won 3 in a row, but I think he's faced 3 really kind of soft, subpar fields. And none of those races are even close to fitting in here. I mean, on time for him, he's paired at 2 105s in a row, and so he's gonna need to find 15 points. And on Buyer's figs, he needs to probably be 10 points faster. And I think those fairground figs are super juiced from what I've seen for the most part. So I just think Kingsbarn is just way too slow. He's a horse that I like at some point during the summer. I like him when he runs back at Saratoga in the Jim Dandy or something. But I just, he's a cool horse. There's a point in time, hopefully in his career, where I really can get behind him, but he just hasn't developed enough yet. I just don't think he's, I want the horse of now, and he's just not it.
Ben Alex Jones Wilkie says big breeding runs all the figs. You can't trust him. Yeah, Alex is talking about verifying, saying he's got to go from post 2, and I agree. I think that verifying is going to get hustled out to the lead for multiple reasons. Mostly because that's his only option, but also I think Brad Cox's 2 best horses in this race need some pace in front of him. So I wouldn't be surprised if a horse like Verifying or was it Jace's Road also, I think, if they kind of go and go pretty fast early to help set up 2 of Brad's other horses, obviously being the 2 best Brad horses in this race, I think, are the One Hit Show and obviously a horse that I actually I like quite a bit, which is the 14 Angel of Empire. Of the quote unquote short price horses that aren't Dermisot Gake, this is probably the horse I like the most in this spot. Was one I kind of was going back and forth on. I liked him after that Risen Star. I think he was, Andrew Champagne. I did a show, and I had called out Angel of Empire. He was like 56 to 1 in the futures, and I was like, this is probably like the long shot that I'm most interested in. And Mark is also waving. He likes him there.
I do have a future on him at 56 to 1.
I think I really liked him going into the Risen Star before we talked about that. So,
I kind of like Angel of Empire here. I think he is one that's progressed his last two starts here in the Risen Star and then the Arkansas Derby. That Arkansas Derby, he closed into what wasn't really a super, super fast pace. So, at least for Oak Lawn. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought the 14 is kind of one of those horses that's on the up and up, and I think if he takes another step forward, I think he's right there in the spot.
Yeah, I have to admit, the more I've handicapped this and sort of waited in the lead up to the weekend, if I've slightly cooled on any horse, it might be Angel of Empire. And I still like him. I'll probably still have him somewhere on a ticket. But the more I kind of looked at him, I mean, he's a very honest horse to be sure. But my question with him is really just he's already improved a lot. I mean, if you look at where he started, I mean, he was not fast. I mean, he won his race, but he did it slowly. You know, in an Indiana Grand maiden special weight, he then throughout the turf race, he came back in Indiana Grand allowance race, and I mean, he's really improved essentially in every start, which is depending on how you look at it, it could be a positive sign. But I kind of also wonder. I mean, we've already seen so much improvement in not that long of a time that has he kind of already run his race? His Arkansas Derby was very impressive. I did think he kind of got set up that day where Dead Closers kind of ran one too. But yeah, I mean, I still like Angel of Empire. I still think that he's a nice horse. Like I said, I'm probably not gonna throw him out completely, but he probably went from being like an A for me along with Derma Sotogake to maybe more of like a maybe like a lone B kind of territory, or maybe a B with a horse like Two Fills. Just because I do have some questions about really how much more improvement he has in him if he can work out a trip. Because if you look at the pace complexion, I mean, I don't know if you can pull the optics plot up again, Josh, but he legitimately might be last in this field. I mean, he might have to pass 18 other horses. So I keep hearing this argument that he has tactical speed, and I just don't see it. I mean, if you look at his running lines, it may deceive you into thinking that. But if you look at his fractional splits, I really struggle to see him being not anywhere ahead of maybe a horse like Mandarin Hero he gets in front of, or maybe a horse like Sun Thunder. But I struggle to see him any better than that. And he's going to have a lot to do at what seems like he is taking a lot of money and going to be a fairly short price.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm going to take the opposite side of that argument as Caleb. I think when I initially capped this, I had, I had Angel of Empire as a B, and I've actually moved Angel, with Derma as being my only A, and I've moved Angel of Empire up to, up to being an A now, so I end up with two A's. I think that, you know. I don't disagree with you in the fact that he's does not have as much pace early as some of the other horses in here, but I don't think he's like crazy slow where he's going to be, a mind that bird and 30 lengths back kind of a thing. I think he's, I think he has some speed, and I don't. And if you look at all of his races, I don't think he's ever really been last. I mean, he's been 3 or 4 or 5 lengths back at first call, but it's not like he's been massively crazy back. I get where your argument is, and he's definitely a horse that makes that sort of one big long prolonged move. But I think his last two races, in the Risen Star and the Arkansas Derby, have been very, very impressive, and he's just kind of one drawing away. And honestly, I was a little bit against him in the Arkansas Derby because I knew he was already in the and I thought he might not be cranked, and I didn't kind of understand how they were campaigning him, and then he just showed up with a massive performance. So I understand your argument about, geez, does he have more room to take that next step forward? Because he probably does have to take a little bit of a step forward. But he's done it 3 or 4 times in a row. Why can't he do it again? I mean, in a field I think is fairly suspect, I think he's a pretty major player in here.
Ryan Johnson, he says, sorry if I'm ignorant, but he's new to the channel. Who's the jockey to watch, and who got the mount of a lifetime? Honestly, like, this was just intriguing to me because this wasn't something I had looked at. But I mean, Irad Ortiz Jr. has not won a Derby yet. For being the best jockey going for what, at least 3 years, maybe a little bit longer. And no, what?
Everyone says that, and I just don't buy it. I mean, every jock has their strong suits and their weak points, and I think, I mean, how many Wednesday Irad rides have you seen at Saratoga or at a Gulfstream, right? Like, yeah, Irad is a very good jockey. He herds like crazy, and I honestly kind of think he's overrated. But personal opinions,
But I don't know. Like, don't you think if he's got the morning line favorite and he doesn't win, that maybe people start wondering if he's ever going to win it?
Didn't he also have a like 1 to 5 on the card today that he basically forgot how to ride to coming to the top of the stretch, did nothing on the rail, and then did the last 50 yards went, oh, maybe I should ride my horse, and then got,
All right,
nailed
Mark's
off.
not taking the bait. Caleb.
Um, I mean, the jockey to watch, quote unquote, I guess I would say is probably between Johnny Velasquez or Luis Saez. I think Luis Saez might be riding better than anybody right now. I mean, he's just a very consistent rider. The reason I don't say him alone is simply because I don't like him on horses like this with this draw. He's going to have to work out an inside ground saving off the pace trip, and I don't think that's his strength. Whereas I do think with a horse like Reincarnate with Johnny V up, I don't know that I think this horse can necessarily win, but Johnny V is an accomplished rider at this level. He rode very well today, and just he's an old timer that tends to really show up on the big days. And it wouldn't surprise me if this is the horse that's on the lead. With Johnny V going out there taking no prisoners and playing come and catch me. So I think Reincarnate with Johnny V maybe is the jockey that best fits the stage here.
David Aragona said something that really upset me earlier this week on the podcast. He said something along the lines of Johnny Velasquez on a West Coast horse that was at some point trained by Bob Baffert on the lead in the Kentucky Derby. And I kind of shuddered a little bit, because, if you go back, you think of horses like Authentic and Medina Spirit.
I've had multiple nightmares. Reincarnate wires the Kentucky Derby.
Oh my God! Just I'm unsubscribed.
Derma gets neck and neck in the stretch, and then Reincarnate just re-breaks and wins by like a head.
Why?
Nightmares.
I actually like Reincarnate a bit underneath. I don't think it's the same quality horse that Johnny and that Johnny's had under him the past couple of years, but I don't think he's 50-1.
I think it's supposed to be 15. I think it was a typo.
Yeah, that was a bad line.
Okay.
They admitted it very quickly that it was.
I don't know. I'm interested in him as an underneath type. I do see a lot of people in the chat. They're talking about this being Jareth Loveberry's Mount of a Lifetime, and
100%.
I guess
totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think maybe they don't recognize Larry Ravelli. He's very much he's got a guy and he sticks with the guy. Years back, it was Jose Valdivia Jr. And now it's basically Jareth Loveberry. So Jareth has been aboard for almost all of this horse's starts. So Larry's keeping him up. Larry obviously trusts him, and this horse is coming in with the highest buyer among any of the horses in this field. Yes, I know it was on synthetic, Mark, before you correct me. But we've seen a lot of these turfway horses run really well coming off that turfway surface.
We have.
This horse does have a win over the surface, going a mile and 16th in the street sense, albeit it was in a slop. But it was a very impressive win, winning by 5 1/4 lengths. And David Aragona, once again, he made me uncomfortable, but then he made me really happy because he said, if you want to talk about good works, you need to see that April 27th work that Two Phils had, because if you take stock in works, that was probably the best work that he's seen so far.
So after he finishes like mid-pack in the Derby, they're going to put him on turf finally, right? They're actually going to put him on the right surface.
I don't think this horse wants turf. Do you?
Yeah. I think he very much wants turf.
I think the horse is live, but obviously I may be extremely biased because my love for Larry Ravelli has no bounds.
None.
But I don't know. I think Two Phils is in with a shot. He is going to have to work out a trip, and maybe that's the big question mark, I think, for me. And I know Larry talked a little bit about he's going to basically have to follow the 2 speed horses on his inside and outside in verifying and confidence game, and try and get established position early and not let any of the outside horses kind of come across him. So that's the plan, at least per the interview. But I don't know. I like Two Phils. Originally, it was kind of a meme, because I have to have it. It's like having a night horse, for Caleb. Like I got to have the Ravelli horse, but I don't know. David got me got me pretty excited. I know Emily Optics also likes the horse. She's probably also biased since she works at Hawthorne. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the 3 2 fills in this spot. I will have it as an A. I have 3 A's in here, being 2 fills and then 2 horses we already talked about, Angel of Empire as well as a 17 Dermasoto Gake. We could sit here and basically like talk about all these horses forever, but why don't we actually kind of maybe start wrapping stuff up? So Mark, you already talked about Angel of Empire. You talked about Derma. You said you got some B horses. Who else do you kind of like underneath
Yeah,
here?
my 2 B horses are the 8-horse Mage. I think that Mage probably improves quite a bit with a stretch out. The argument is, has Mage seen enough? Does Mage have the experience? Sayas decided to get off, which is says quite a bit to me. Although Javi is not a bad replacement. And I think Mage is the kind of horse that maybe is a bit of that unknown quantity. Maybe you really want Mage in the Jim Dandy or something like that, but I think Mage is a very talented horse and could take another step forward here if he figures out how to break and be a major player here. The other horse I'm a little interested in, and I have listed as a B, is the 22 horse Mandarin Hero. This was a horse that was almost got to practical move in that in that Cinedita Derby. I think pedigree probably says that little bit extra stretch out, and the run style says that little bit extra stretch out might get it done for Mandarin Hero. So big price, an interesting sort of outsider type. And I guess I'm on the 2 Japanese horses of all things, which something I never thought I would ever say in the Kentucky Derby.
Caleb?
Yeah, I'm simple. The more I studied this race, the more that I looked at it and analyzed it, the only horse that I'm truthfully using prominently is going to be Derma Sotogake. I just think he is head and shoulders above what is a pretty weak 3-year-old crop domestically. There's about 100 different reasons to like Derma Sotogake in here, and I know it's the UAE shippers, blah blah blah. I don't care. It's inevitable they're going to win one. It's inevitable. I think that Japan is going to win one with the investment they're putting into their breeding program. It may not be this one, but I think it is inevitable, and I think Derma Sotogake is by far their best chance. The raw time of his UAE Derby was just incredibly fast. I mean, a 155.4. I mean, that gets an official time form rating that's not that fast, but you don't want to use that because it doesn't compare on the same scale to the time form US figures. Craig kind of ballparked the time form figure for time form US at a 121, which is, one of, if not the fastest figures in this race. And if you just look at the raw times of the UAE Derby versus the Dubai World Cup, it kind of validates that. I mean, it was 7.4 seconds faster. It's the biggest gap by quite a bit between those 2 races in the last 10 years. So I think Derma Sotogake makes a ton of sense. He absolutely buried a horse in Japan called Hero Call. Hero Call actually beat Mandarin Hero 2 back in Mandarin Hero's last race in Japan. And then Mandarin Hero came back and almost beat Practical Move and did beat Skinner in Santa Anita in one of the biggest preps on the West Coast. So, I mean, I just think Derma Sotogake comes in with the form, with the right versatility, the run style. If he can, work out somewhat of a trip, I think he's going to be extremely tough. Beyond him, there's really nobody else that I want on top. I'll have a little bit of Angel of Empire, like I said. I'll probably have a little bit of 2 fills, like I said. Otherwise, I'm taking a stand against the Pletchers for the most part. And then I'm going to try to work in some of the bombs underneath. Maybe a horse like Disarm, perhaps, or Mandarin Hero, I think can run up and get a piece, but I'm not going to use them on top.
Yeah, and I think you guys have basically talked about the other horse that I like. I do like Mandarin Hero, and I like Mandarin Hero because I loved Practical Move. Practical Move was probably my top pick outside of Derma Sotogake before he scratched. If you like Practical Move, you gotta like Mandarin Hero, right? So I will be using Mandarin Hero as kind of a BC type. And then the other horse that I wasn't super interested in to begin with, and I'm a little concerned about the post, but I don't know. I keep on just like coming. I think that's a bingo square. I keep on coming back to this horse. That's a one-hit show. I think that a lot is going to have to go right for this horse to win, but I definitely think that this is a horse that I'm going to key underneath in an exacta, going to use underneath in trifectas, supers. Um, you know, basically closed into a paceless race last time out. Lost to a nose to Lord Miles, who's not running in here. And before that, won the Withers, won a nice race at Oaklawn. And it's just another one of those horses that's kind of progressed a little bit each time he started. So I'm super interested in Hit Show to hit the board. I don't know so much if this one's going to win. Real quick, I did see someone did ask, and I don't think we talked about it. I've seen a little bit of chat about verifying, just because he is going to get, I think he is going to get the lead. I mean, do you guys have any interest in using this horse underneath or anything? Or is this just
No,
another toss?
he's
Let's
not for
grab it.
me.
No.
If he couldn't get it done last time with a perfect trip and first jump on tap at Trice, I tend to question his ability to see out the distance against a bigger field with a faster pace, and he's going to be forced to use more horse early. I just struggle to see him getting it done.
If you wanted to use them on the bottom end of a try or a super, somehow filling it out, sure, have at it. I wouldn't talk you off it, but it just, I think they're, I don't know, pace complexion wise, he's up against it, and I don't know. It almost feels like the kind of win or miss the board type, and I just tend to lean on missing the board.
And then I think the Foxhound had asked about confidence game. You guys a fan of King Guillermo in the spot?
I would have liked him if he had a prep. Because I was really high on him after the Rebel. I thought that was a visually impressive race. Looking back, I mean, I think that he's got speed in a race that doesn't have a ton of speed, but going from the Rebel straight to the Derby, that's a big ask for a guy that isn't exactly known for excelling on this stage anyway. With this kind of a move, it's a big ask. I don't think I'll use him. I wish he had a prep, but I wouldn't talk anybody off because he is kind of the wild card of the race.
Yeah, he's a very interesting wild card. Obviously, the horse we haven't seen in quite a while. My issue with him is he has one figure, which is that Rebel, which fits, but he also is like the highest Tomlinson's figures of the field. So he's the horse that if this somehow randomly comes up sloppy, he's a major player. I think he just sort of, hit a Rebel on a day where it was sloppy, which is, something he's bred to love, and therefore threw a big fig, and not that he actually really belongs here. Again, I would agree with Caleb. If he had a prep and some other information to back up, he would be a much more interesting player, but it's always hard to talk people over 20-1. So if you think, if you think he's a player, I wouldn't talk anybody off him, but I have a hard time getting to being on top.
Yeah, and the last horse, I swear, before we get done, and this is just another one that Ryan's mentioning, a Disarm, is another one I've seen a lot of people talk about, and I just don't get. Any interest in this horse?
This horse I don't get at all. What do I don't understand what people are getting on about with him. Besides, he was on a Clocker report as having a good recent work. That's the only thing I can get to with him.
I actually do like Disarm a little bit. I don't think he can win the race, but he's going to be one of probably two of my keys to run underneath and fill out the super or the trifecta. I thought his Louisiana Derby was a lot better than it looks, trying to close into that insanely slow pace. I mean, he made a good run to actually get up for second while never really threatening the leader. And then the Lexington came back surprisingly fast. The figure for that race came back very honest. So, yeah, I think that Disarm. Yeah, I don't think he can win the race. I don't, but I think Rosario is the perfect jockey for this kind of horse. That's going to save the ground, get the most out of this horse, and he might come running up and clunk up for third or fourth. I could definitely see that.
And our friend Ryan here hits us with a super chat. So thank you for the donation there. He says, "What's going on, guys? I hope you guys had a banger today. I did okay." But he's alive in the Oaks Derby double. He's alive to Mage,
good on
Forte,
Very
Derma
nice.
Sotogake, and Mandarin Hero. So I appreciate the fact that you are also alive to Derma Sotogake like the rest of us, at least in future wagers and other things. But
I honestly like all four horses he's live to. So yeah, hopefully we can all connect. You're basically on my top four, Ryan. So good on you. Well, -4.
yeah, I mean, it's going to be a marathon of a day tomorrow. I know Caleb and I are probably at some point hopping on the Trust the Prophet stream. Maybe we'll talk after this, Caleb, and try and hop on at the same time, just to cause mass confusion, like I did today, because I came in about 2 margaritas deep, and was feeling a little dangerous, and my bankroll also felt in danger
A
the entire
little
time.
dangerous, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm not cool enough to be on the Trust the Prophet stream, so you guys have fun with that.
you could just you can send a
I know I
message over
could. I
to,
know I could.
But so Ryan's asking if we get everyone's I guess top 3 real quick. I know we already kind of mentioned it, but he says win play show, but we'll just say top 3. Obviously, I go with Derma number 1. I will go with Angel of Empire number 2, and I'll go with Two Phils number 3. Caleb.
I'm going Derma on top. I think that what the hell? I think Disarm can run up, maybe get a piece. I'll put him second, and then I think that we'll say I think Forte is going to run well. I mean, I think he can probably hit the board.
Mark.
Derma, Angel, and Mandarin.
All right, there we go. We all put Derma on top. So, maybe I'll order sushi for dinner tomorrow, and get a bottle of sake. And
I'm wearing my kimono on stream tomorrow.
You're in your kimono?
I mean, I can.
Ooh,
man, dude, you know what?
I don't know if the internet can handle that.
Dude, so I don't even want to be insensitive, but like part of me was thinking about ordering one of those like from the Karate Kid, the little headband that he wears in the Karate Kid. But I probably wouldn't feel great if someone showed up with like a big old sombrero if Kulka Khan or Latruska was running or something like that. So I decided to come back a little bit, but Ben saying I'm canceled. Oh well. But thank you guys for hanging out. As always, at wrong_lead on Twitter. Catch us at onthewronglead.com. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you got friends annoying you for derby picks, you can always send them our way. We got tons of content out there. Pick 6 videos. We got individual videos, handicapped. And then check out the Trust the Prophet stuff. We'll be on sometime tomorrow. And they were just a fun group to be on with. So good luck, everybody. Hopefully you guys cash some big bets, and we'll talk to you guys later.